You gonna be comfortable like that for a little bit?
Yeah, if not, I got it here. I can just turn it.
Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to an episode of Not For Nothing. I am in Alabama, and it is hot. I shouldn't say that. It's hot.
No, it's hot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hot.
I've hooked up with a friend that I've known for quite a long fucking time. Since you pretty much started tattooing, I've known you.
Yeah, pretty much almost since the beginning. You were tattooing Jess Strickland's hand, and I met you at Detroit, I think.
Oh shit, okay.
That's when I came up and started talking to you.
Okay, well, before we get into that, why don't you let everybody know who you are?
I'm Sean Herman. I live in Mobile, Alabama, and been tattooing down here for 15, 16 years.
And where are you from originally?
I was born in Illinois, but grew up in Daphne, is what I always say, which is in Alabama. It's across the bay from here.
Okay.
It's the town that's right across Mobile Bay.
Now, did you have like a traditional apprenticeship, or did you kind of like...
Yeah, no, I did. Well, I did. So I had, my life was hectic growing up. My mom was severe bipolar. So like we moved around a lot. So I started in Illinois, and then we moved to Oregon, outside of Portland. And then we had to sell everything we owned, and we moved to Wisconsin. And from Wisconsin, Minnesota. And then my folks split up, and my mom decided to move to Alabama.
Damn,
And
that's a lot of moving around.
Yeah, that was all by the time I was 8.
You know, it's almost a better thing that it was at that early of an age, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
no, it was good. It was a lot going on. I'll just put it that. You know, like she got hospitalized when I was 6 after a suicide attempt. And so it became a very hectic life from there on out.
I can imagine,
if that makes
yeah.
sense. You know, like, so, and I was the one who found her. And so I think that created a dynamic between the two of us that just never really changed in a good way, if that makes sense.
But we were talking, okay, so I should say that we got here a couple hours ago.
Thankfully, yeah, it was great.
And it has been like nonstop conversation. You know, the one thing I always say, like whenever I do this, like I always get into town early, and instead of just running at, like we were sitting in the restaurant, in the bar, and I'm like, man, I wish I had cameras for all of this, because it's one of those things you don't want to break up the conversation, you know, while it's happening.
That natural flow.
And the thing is, it's like those are the things that sometimes people want to hear. And the one thing I've often said is, yeah, you don't get to hear that.
Yeah.
There are certain things that we did speak about that you don't want everybody to know. Like
that's how you
in
say
the know
it.
kind of thing.
Yeah, there's some that are in the know, and then there's some it's how you say it. How do you refer to the people or the situation?
Which is something we talked about, and we're going to get into, because we did talk about this, and you are cool with talking, because some of the people in your life have been, what's the most polite way of putting that?
How would you say? They have been sick, and they try to spread their generational trauma to others.
All right, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something I'm glad that you want to talk about, because I don't think it's not a matter of talking about it because it's shit talking. It's a matter of talking about it because it's an important...
It's a serious thing that people need to understand is not their fault if they've experienced it, and that there's better ways of going about that.
Let's not jump into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, like, so were you an artist as a kid?
I drew all the time, but again, with the hectic upbringing, I just drew on whatever I could. So it'd be like paper that was from paper rolls my dad gave me because he worked at a newspaper. Whatever things we could get. We didn't have much money. Like I didn't grow up with money, and stuff wasn't consistent. Right. So when we moved to Alabama, it was constantly different financially because of my mom's manias. So like I was the kid that would have random breakfast food that everybody would want, and then they wouldn't know if they're paying the bills.
Oh, for real?
Like churches would feed us sometimes, and then there would be a new car that my mom bought on a whim or whatever.
Wow.
And I say new, it wasn't like new.
No,
I think it was a 1980 Datsun Pulsar she bought once. That became my first car and fell apart while I was driving it. Like that was a nightmare car. But it was, very inconsistent. Right. And so I think that's why I did kind of gravitate toward consistency. And I had a speech impediment growing up, and so I had to do speech therapy, and that led to public speaking. Public speaking led to being part of student council. And then eventually it led to being part of like church events.
So that's what I was going to say. That's kind of a weird segue, because you said you never were, you weren't Christian.
So it took me a while to realize it. I, at the time, would have been like saying like, yeah, I converted. I just don't have like a moment that I converted. And so I was always like chasing this dragon of this emotional feeling of conversion. It's really common for a lot of people that grow up in the church that would happen. Like, I say the church, but like evangelical, Southern Baptist, or like experiential religion. So for myself, it wasn't that situation because I didn't grow up in it. I ended up going with a friend of mine so I could skateboard with him after school, because like I didn't want to go home. So I was always trying to figure out, how do I not go home? And so getting jobs early in life was one, and then so like I was working since I was 14, and then skateboarding with my best friend, still best friend to this day, Danny Flack. We started skateboarding on Wednesday nights, and then I would go to church with him. And I was interested in what they were saying and interested in the Bible, so I'd start yammering and talking. Be like, well, this is my thought on Revelation as a 12-year-old, talking about a book that is not for a 12-year-old to be talking about. And they liked it, and I had a sound when I would talk because of public speaking. So they were like, well, have you ever thought about teaching? And we're doing a Wednesday night that's student-led. You want to do that?
As a 12-year-old?
I'd say 12. I was probably 14.
But 14. Still, that's still pretty young.
Yeah, I was young. But it was... I don't know why they decided it. They didn't do it for a lot of other kids.
And maybe, again, I mean, it could be just that you took control of the situation, and you sounded like you knew what you were talking about. Or
so the thing I've heard about, I didn't know my dad super well, but the thing that people that know both those have said is that you both speak with authority, and I don't mean to. I think it's just something in the tone that comes out. And which sucks, because so many times I should have been corrected, and people did not correct me. When it's like, no, you need to call me out if I said something messed up.
Yeah, but as a child, you're not going to think
Yeah, not as a child. Well, I don't know. Sometimes as a child, it would have been nice to get called out when all of a sudden you start preaching to churches.
I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. I mean, in an Italian household. If you stepped out of line in any way, shape, or form, or said something off color, you were put in your place. Yeah,
and I think I wasn't used to it. So I think if I would have been, I probably would have been like excited in the way of being like, somebody cares enough to do that. And so because I wasn't corrected and they just let me get away with it, I would just talk and talk.
You just let it go and do it.
Just keep, and again, from public speaking, and like I was president of my SGA class and all that stuff. So I started to know how to formulate and do 3 points in conclusion. Intro, 3 points, conclusion. Tie it into everyday life. And so like from there, it was interning at that church. Then it was also doing like the student-led Bible studies and see at the polls, and like getting involved in like the evangelical counterculture, because I was already into like punk rock and hardcore before that. And then at that time, Christian, it sounds like a joke, but Christian hardcore and Christian punk rock was getting bigger,
right?
And there was a lot more of it.
So I think you had just a lot of young kids that were screaming out for understanding. And
there's that, and there's also the flip of it of like churches opening their doors for kids like me that didn't have necessarily support in a home life. So all of a sudden you have these younger kids flooding into churches, and then they're like, well, what do we show them? And so younger bands, they would support these younger bands. So you have a lot of Christian labels starting out that all of a sudden would be like, yeah, we'll give you a record. And so there's a million Christian bands all of a sudden.
Shit, that's crazy.
Because they would pay for it, because it's a ministry. When I was booking shows, 2 of them that I booked through a church, they paid for it because it was viewed as a ministry.
Right.
So like I paid for hotels for bands and stuff because I was 16 and didn't know any better. I just didn't know any better. So I was like, well, where does a band stay? I'll call a hotel. And then sounding the way I did, once I hit puberty, they were like, you must be an adult. So we're not even going to ask a question. Like, let me book hotels. And like before puberty, I had a super high-pitched voice. Got made fun of and beat up constantly. And then puberty hit like overnight. And I remember going to the bullies when they stopped, and I was like, why don't you beat me up anymore? They were like, it's just not fun. Like, you don't sound as funny.
Exactly. When they're beating you up, you're not squealing. Like
you're like, and I thought I was like, like a Michael J. Fox character being smart alecky on the way down, and it wasn't ever that. But yeah, so then got into like the Christian side of punk rock and hardcore, and started getting tattooed at 16.
Okay.
So when I was involved in that, my friend Jason Klein was the one. He was a tattooer that I think was in Jacksonville prior, and then moved over here. And I met him because of a local record store called Dr. Music.
Okay.
This guy Wade, who runs Dr. Music, amazing human being. He's the reason I think that the punk rock scene in our area was able to flourish, because he would buy these records for kids in the 90s and know everything about every one of them. So like he knew about Christian hardcore bands, he knew about straight edge bands, he knew about rockabilly, he knew, and still does know all of
big
it.
into the music scene.
Oh yeah, he's still booking shows. Like
shit, good for him.
he's amazing human being. The music playing upstairs was through one of the speakers he built me.
Oh, so
like
really?
he does all kinds of stuff. Like Wade's amazing. But I had a zine I had made that was like a Christian punk rock zine, and I asked him if I could leave it at Dr. Music. He's like, yeah, sure. And then I came in another time. He's like, this guy Jason Klein stopped by, and he wanted me to give you his number because he liked your zine. He wanted to like hang out and whatever. So started hanging out with Jason, and then he was a tattooer, so I was able to get tattooed by him because he talked to my mom, and she was fine with it because she was fine with everything. And that was also my first foray into tattooing. And the second I could get tattooed, it was all of a sudden like, this is amazing. Like, this is it. And around the same time, there was a documentary, I think PBS did it, on a Palu Zulepe.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I was getting obsessed with tattoos and thinking about me getting a tattoo. And I saw the documentary, and I was just like, this is it. Because it was showing clients coming to him, and like they spent all their time with him, and he would create the piece for them based on their interaction and making it ultimately all them through it. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Like one day, if I was lucky enough, I want to do something like that. But at the time I was like, I will never be able to be a tattooer. Like I will never be that lucky.
It's such
Stars
a
will
weird,
never align.
I think it is a weird kind of thing, especially as a younger, I mean, at that point, you're almost a young adult. You know
Yeah, I mean, I was 16, and it was something that felt so far away. Even though I'd gotten tattooed, I was like, there's no way I'll ever.
Well, and again, back then, there weren't shops every corner. There weren't opportunities where you can go into a shop with, like, say, one of your parents or one of your friends, and, oh, he's a really good artist.
My mom did get tattooed when I was young in Minnesota. She and my stepdad were together before my parents' marriage was over. They were really good for each other, so it's not as bad as it sounds.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, it was, but it wasn't in the long term. She got this rose tattoo with him, and I hated it, but I was a kid, and I was like, I don't like this situation, so I hate tattoos now. And she would not let me live it down. Like,
for real?
she was always like, you hate tattoos. This is funny, you like tattoos. I'm like, okay, Mom, you don't understand the situation because you're in denial of it.
Yeah.
She actually always said, well, it was a little tiny rosebud. She was like, one day when I'm like no longer sick and everything's better, it's gonna bloom and be a rose. And I was so mad about that. Because as a kid, I'm like, that can't happen. It's a tattoo.
Like, that sounds like some movie shit.
Oh yeah, well, that's my mom. My mom was the storyteller. Like, that's why everybody enjoyed her. Like, when she died, the hospital was apologizing to me because they enjoyed the time around her, even though she was a mess. Hot mess and difficult.
Well, I don't think people in hospitals, unless you're problematic, I don't think that, I would like to think that they don't look at most of their patients as being like, you know what I mean, like a burden.
I mean, they were very upset when she died. Because everybody liked her. She was likable. And I did later cover that with a bloomed rose. So I did do the thing. Like, I made it bloom for her, which it took me a while to not be mad about it. And once I wasn't, I was like, well, I can do that for you. So how about we do that? And that was like the only time I tattooed her. And then I tattooed my stepdad, her name on him again after he'd had it years later. So I'm almost mad she was right, that it still came to be. But it was years later that it came to be. But yeah, so because of that family life, the evangelical thing just lined up. And then all of a sudden I'm in it. And so I can't be like, oh, I didn't have a conversion. Like, your brain, especially at that age as a kid, you're like, well, I must have converted. I mean, I think I believe this. This seems fine. And so you're just then chasing this feeling of conversion. So like church camps and all of those like weekend events that they'll have are very much catered to that.
Are they catered? Anything I say, it's going to make it sound like a cult.
I mean, there are good Christians, there are good people that believe that stuff, and then there are people that manipulate and evangelize for their greed.
Which is what I think we see a lot of. Maybe we see a lot of it in...
I think we see the people at the top doing that, and then we see the people that want to believe emulating it.
Yeah.
So there are bad people doing it, but I think it's that puppeteering, and they're taking advantage of people that genuinely do want to believe, because we all want something.
It's almost like the very first pyramid scheme.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would, if you trace back, I mean, I think I'm not one of those that's like, all religion's bad and religion is this. I think it gets corrupted by power.
Yeah.
And humankind, I shouldn't say man, but humankind gets corrupted by power. We're not meant to have it. We're not supposed to have power over anyone. And so I think that's what we see. And it does become like, you could say like a pyramid scheme or something like that, because many times it's, how do I maintain this power?
Right.
What can I do to maintain this power? So do I need to change my belief system to fit this new revolutionary belief system? So I think like Christianity at its time was almost like a revolutionary belief, and then quickly the powers that be took it and tried to do away with any of the things that were controversial. So
right.
like you had, a lot of the early Christians, like the Christian mystics, and you had the Christians that believed in more experiential ideas that we are God and God is us, and that Jesus was telling us that we're all the sons and daughters of God and not that he is. And that was, real beliefs that people had that are traced back in these books. And they were the first heretics that were then murdered. And so it slowly built to create control to where they could have the ultimate control of it. Yeah. And I think it's what we see now. I mean, you see it now with the evangelical movement.
Well, yeah. I mean, and again, we see it especially now, because now it's like it's popped up and doesn't seem like it's going away.
Well, they're taking advantage of it. I don't think most of those people.
I think they're taking advantage of it, and I think that well, I mean, dude, I don't want to get into politics, but yeah, we see it happening.
Well, it's also like what is Christians? You can say figure these things out traced all day long, because Jesus wasn't a Christian. Jesus's followers wouldn't say they were Christians. So when does it begin, this idea of what is a Christian? So I'm not one now being out of it where I have this anger. I used to, when I was young, after I got out of everything, I was mad.
You were mad?
But I was mad, I think, in the long run, I was mad at myself, because I felt like, how did I believe that? But then it's like, well, people were encouraging you.
Well, oh God, so it's so weird, because when I think about where you came from in the business, and I see what you went through, you look back on a lot of the things that have gone in your life, and you look back on it and you go,
very similar.
How did I allow that to happen?
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff that it took years of therapy to realize that I am not bringing this to myself. I'm not trying to make my life worse, or I'm not a sucker, or I'm not a bad person. Sometimes it just happens. Yeah. If you love and care genuinely, people will many times come around you and then see that and be like, well, I can maybe do something with that and manipulate it. And I'm not saying that they even mean to. Some people
Some people do and some people don't. I think some people just take that. I don't think they look at it as taking advantage. I think that you just fit a particular, you fit something in their life that they need.
Yes.
And while they may not be taking advantage, they are, they are using what you give them, and maybe not with the truest of intentions.
Well, and I was always
maybe being a bit selfish.
I was bad about being I'll be the most. So I'll be, the hardest worker. I'll be the one that's working the most. I'll volunteer the most. I'll do, because I thought that was my value. My value was my work. And it was always like that since I was a kid. So the church, it really easily fit into that. And when I started doing missionary work, I did missions in inner city Memphis, and it just kind of all fit in a way to where I would take my political, activist, punk rock ideologies and mold them to fit it.
And I can see that, depending on the area, really. I mean, in New York, didn't you have that whole hardcore, you had all these like Krishnas.
Oh yeah, Krishna,
You know,
huge.
like, and they were at every show, and again, I only know that from an outsider's perspective because of people I knew that were into that whole scene. I didn't grow up with any of that shit.
But it's interesting to hear an outsider perspective.
Well, because to me, it
that's
just seems
different.
like such a fucking weird thing for that.
Yeah.
But again, you could also look at it as these are young kids that are I don't want to say they're revolting from stuff, but they're looking for an identity.
Well, I mean, it's rebellion. Rebellion's good because rebellion is how you find yourself. And I think that like youth rebellion is important and needed. And I think like for myself, I always say like punk rock saved my life because I did learn everything that I applied later in life from punk rock.
Right.
Like the first article I wrote for TAM was about
Tattoo Artist Magazine.
Yeah, Tattoo Artist Magazine Quarterly. Was about that. Was about how like punk rock was the thing that I could find so much direction and truth in.
So, I mean, I don't know about the rest of the country. I only know about New York. But how much of that was nationwide? I mean, obviously it was down here.
By the time I was a kid, so I'm 42. So, you know, by my age of being a kid, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like my first show was the Ramones, like as in what I went to go see. My friend's mom, we wanted to go see Pearl Jam, and this was 92, I think. 93? Might have been a little later. I was in 5th grade. And they were going to take us to New Orleans to see Pearl Jam, and she was like, the Ramones are opening for them. And if you guys are talking about liking punk rock, this is the band you have to see. If you're going to talk it, this is what matters. And it changed my life. Like seeing the Ramones, and you know, Henry Rollins and Ian McKay and all these people talk about seeing them. It really is like you see it and you're like, I could do that. I want to do that. And it was so like genuine and so like you could do anything you wanted. And then you go back to your hometown and you make zines, you book shows, and like that always ran arm in arm to me, even within tattooing. Like me getting into tattooing and how I got into tattooing, like it was still in that punk rock culture. And what you're doing, this to me, that's punk rock. Like you are doing this on your own. You are doing this for no other reason than you want to do this.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, for me, it is selfish because it's about getting reconnecting with people that I haven't seen in a very long time, which has been a really nice thing. And it's also about hearing other people's stories, but it's also about gleaning a little bit of inspiration for what's happening with me now. You know what I mean? It's more about that, I think, than anything else. It is completely selfish. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I've had people like just a few days ago were just like, you know, it's really good that you're bringing these stories out there. I'm like, dude, it ain't for you. It's for me. You know, I mean, it's the truth.
But that's how it should be. Like, why do we do any, like, you know, why do we give? Why do we volunteer? Why do we help? We should never give somebody something expecting anything back. You give because you want to give. Like, that should always be why we do anything. So, to me, it's more so the right answer is you do it because you want to do it. It's funny because hearing it back, somebody saying it's being selfish. I always say that about stuff that I'll do that like people view as nice, and I'm like, no, I'm just doing it because I want to. I'm just being selfish because it's what I want to do. So hearing you say it, I'm like, that's what I sound like. Because it's like, okay, I get it now. Like why people correct me on it. Okay, I get it. Because it is. I think we're trained that if we enjoy it and we're doing it for ourselves, it's bad or it's selfish. I'm not saying you're saying it's bad, but it's like selfish. When like that's how we should be living. You know, I think that's what attracted me to anarchism as a older adult getting out of like Christianity was that idea of like enjoy every day of living because you're doing what you want to do, not doing what you think you're supposed to do, not doing the job that somebody told you to do, but the job that you are passionate about.
I think that has a lot to do with how you were brought up. Like for me, being brought up, like you got a job, you paid your bills, you got a house, you got married, you did your thing. You know, you follow the same, you know, rules and regulations that your parents did, and I didn't. Like I was the black sheep. I was an artist. I was always an artist. I managed to get into this, thank goodness.
Well, you were airbrushing before,
I started.
Right?
I was like right in high school. Like I think 10th grade in high school, there was a guy painting on the wall with an airbrush, and I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "It's an airbrush." And he was doing a big Iron Maiden painting. Actually, that's not true. The first one he did was the 3 art teachers in my high school. That was the first one he had done, and then he got to do this giant Iron Maiden, the first album cover. But we're talking like 15
in the
feet
high
tall.
school?
In the high school, yeah. Because they were just so excited to have
Where
a mural
was that
program
high school at?
in Lindenhurst. And I don't know if they still have this. We're going back. This is a 1980. That was 83 in 83.
Okay.
But I don't know if the high school still has a mural program. But yeah, these murals were all over the high school. And I did one. I got to do one
awesome.
when I was in 10th grade. But I got to learn how to airbrush while I was in 10th and 11th grade. And I had a job doing that. And then the tattooing thing, again, just fell in my lap because went to get tattooed with a bunch of friends and I got asked to get into it. So how about you? Like, so did you?
Yes, that's so funny.
When you did when you were in the Christian thing, like, it wasn't tattooing that drew you out of it. It was tattooing that happened after the fact.
Yeah, well, so I loved tattooing, and I loved that part of counterculture. And I remember I had some people who were very nice to me that took care of me a lot. This like couple, and like they took me. I went to college at Sanford. They took me to Sanford to visit Sanford. They were the ones that signed for my car loan, my first car loan. They were the ones that co-signed for the bank loan and like me opening an account. They believed in me and they did a lot for me. They did not understand or like tattoos and tattooing. And they were like, yeah, this is just a phase. Like, you're going to get out of this. And then you'll be doing the pastoral work that you should be doing. And I was just like, I don't think it's a phase. And it drove a wedge to where we eventually stopped speaking.
Well, I mean, I can see that. If people have a vested belief in you, whether or not it benefits them in any way, shape, or form, I think certain people just want to see people go in a certain direction, whether or not they think, I mean, I don't think whether or not they think it's good, you like it or not. I think they look at it as, well, this is best for you.
Yeah, well, and they're taking their idea of what success is, and they're saying, I know what success is, and since I believe that you're easily going to be able to attain it, this should be the way to go. Yeah. I mean, you see it with apprenticeships, you see it with tattooers. How many times have somebody directed somebody's tattoo career based upon how good they were at the beginning? I
think that's what's lacking in the business today.
Yeah.
Is the fact that there isn't that same thought and belief and want to see somebody succeed. I think now it's just a matter of like, oh, this person wants to learn, I'm going to teach them for whatever fucking reason. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily a want and belief to make this person into a great tattooer. Yeah. I think they're just looking at it from the standpoint of like, yeah, I can use another worker.
Yeah, and it's a bummer. Like, because I remember,
and I'm not saying that's the case across the board, but
no,
I think
it's
that's
a lot.
A lot.
It's a lot. So I don't know about like, I don't know a lot going on today, but I can say like, a decade, 2 decades ago for sure, there was the mills of like pumping people out.
Yeah.
I know for myself, so for me it was hard to get into tattooing. I was at Sanford in Birmingham and was going there preaching on the weekends and then getting tattooed started heavily getting tattooed. Majority of the tattoos I got by the time I was 19.
Oh, for real? Okay.
Oh yeah, like it was a really amazing human being, this guy Keely Idle, Sparrowhawk sometimes, but usually Keely Idle. He apprenticed me eventually, but he was tattooing me a lot. And he was so kind and so opening, so welcoming. Watching him draw, he's probably the best illustrator I think I've ever seen.
Really?
Like, he just can pump it out. His brain, hand, they're connected so well that, like, he drew a tattoo for my friend Clay that was Jesus in an Elvis jumpsuit with like FSU under it, like fuck shit up. And it was maybe this big. And it was very obviously Jesus and Elvis jumpsuit, perfect. Like he knew how to take away. You didn't question what it was, and he could make it work. So getting tattooed by him was huge. And then I started getting tattooed by a lot of other people. Well, I say a few other people. Jason Klein, who tattooed me at the beginning. I would come down to Mobile because he was tattooing and get tattooed by him. I got tattooed by a guy, C.W. Neese, who I later worked with, who does great, amazing work, and I was lucky to get tattooed by him early in. Bailey Robertson.
Oh, I know that.
Bailey Hunter Robertson, I think. I have a second tattoo, and maybe second through 15th. I have a whole leg that's all of his like apprentice work. He was such a nice guy about it. He was so hungry and excited to tattoo that I was just like, yeah, you can have my whole leg, like whatever you want. And he would be so nice about it. He's like, you're so tough. You're so tough. It's awesome. It's so cool. He did.
You were really young too.
Oh yeah. I think he was just excited. I wasn't tough. He was just excited. I was getting tattooed at one point. I mean, it was every couple days by somebody because I was so like hungry to. I didn't think I would get to be a tattooer.
It's funny. You're like the third person I've spoken to in the past week that literally said the same thing.
I just loved
One person literally got tattooed twice in the same day. Got tattooed, left, and then literally that night went back to the tattoo shop to get a second tattoo.
I mean, it was. I got my first one at 16 on my back. a Sacred Heart, which then later I got a Sacred Heart on my forearm. Then later I got a Sacred Heart on my forearm. Like, it was a decade until I realized, like, I have 2 Sacred Hearts on my forearms next to each other.
But back then that was like, I remember, like, I used to draw Sacred Hearts all the time.
Oh yeah,
it was just a really popular thing.
And it was something you could change. Like, what I liked about it is it was iconic. So it's like Sacred Heart for a mechanic, Sacred Heart for a baker.
Yeah, you can go hot rod, you can go in a new school, you can go
just change all
old
those
school,
components.
You can go Mexican, you can go so many different.
Well, it's just changing the components. So
Exactly.
like, if it's like a Sacred Heart for a baker, it's not a crown of thorns. It's going to be like some sort of baking material wrapped around it, and like it is a very usable icon.
It's still, I think it still is. Every now and again, like, if I'm tattooing somebody, I will pull out a Sacred Heart and just be like, "Oh, no, you should get a Sacred Heart," and they're like, "What?" Because it's such you don't see it often anymore.
Yep, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like,
but to me, we came up with it.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because, like, I knew it from tattoo magazines. And then later understanding older painting and seeing so many older paintings, I remember looking at them being like, those ones are brutal. Like, the tattoo magazines were like your, like, bivalve heart.
Yeah.
And then the paintings were like an anatomical heart that's like weighted and like gushy and bloody. And it was just like, that's way more brutal.
It's such a great, it's just such a great image.
Oh, and then you get like Sacred Heart of Mary, and you start to get like the swords, and there's just so much imagery in that.
There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it. Like, back in the early 90s, it was like the thing for us to tattoo and get.
So that's when I was seeing tattoos. So like the 90s, I was into hardcore, and I was into punk rock, and then reading and trying to find tattoo magazines, trying to find anything tattoo, to just look at tattoos. And so seeing like these takes on Sacred Heart, I do think those are the things that shaped me drawing even in high school, to where I would want to draw that, or like I'd see tattoos on like people in bands and be like, oh, that's cool, I'm gonna redraw that. And like, again, I never thought I could tattoo. I just thought I was redrawing it because I want to get that.
Right.
Like, I got a leg sleeve started by Chad Soner. Like, I was 18, and he was very kind. He was always very nice to me. I totally did the 18-year-old not follow through and only get so much done thing.
Yeah.
But I came in with a drawing I did on butcher paper to be like, I want it like this. And it's Mary ripping a human heart in half. And then the back were for a band that like my friends growing up were in called the Judas Cradle. They had a song called 3 Words Kill Me. And like a hardcore kid, I was like, I want that on the back too. 3 words kill me on the back of my leg. And he redrew it happily. And like, I now think, I was like, I came in with a huge scribe of a drawing, trying to be like, I want this drawing, I want this thing. And he was kind enough to be like, okay, no. But he did it in a way that I didn't realize, because he didn't really say no. He was just like, okay, well, this is what I have drawn. And I was like, that's perfect.
I think that sometimes, like, you don't realize like how much, I mean, we do it every day. I mean, like, how much the artist can sway the direction in which a client is thinking, you know what I mean? And then there's some people, I think today it's a little bit more difficult, because I think now, because of social media and stuff, people have an idea of what they want, where they want to take it, and the artist is no longer anything other than the individual who's going to make your dream come true.
Yeah, well, and I have a practice where I don't say no, and I don't say things can't happen. If they come to me with an idea, I say, this is how I can make this happen, and that's the only thing I try to present. It changes the conversation a lot, because if people don't hear no, they're not going to immediately then be on their guard and be like, oh, it's like car salesman. If they hear no, they're like, oh, then you think I'm stupid.
But that's why I'm saying, back in the day, if you gave somebody advice and said no, they didn't think to question it.
Oh yeah, no, I got a no from a friend of mine. I wanted the band Converge, like the shirt I'm wearing. They're one of my favorite bands, and they had a record cover for When Forever Comes Crashing, one of their early records, and it was this like graffiti of angels, and I wanted that here. Like, I came to Jason, was like, I want these angels here. It's like this, and it was like messy graffiti, and he was like, no, we'll do something else. And then in talking, we did like a dagger with going through a bird's head,
right?
Which, sure, at that age I was again 18, so I'm just like, yeah, that's great, like I'll get that. I'm just glad I'm getting tattooed, and it became something that I was super in love with, to where it became far more obvious that Christianity wasn't making sense. And like, I had some bad situations arise where I was trying to connect with churches and I couldn't, and like my scholarship from the Southern Baptist Convention was based on me working at a church. And they worked with me and finagled it to where I was like handing out sandwiches to homeless people downtown.
So you're still kind of technically connected.
Yes. So like that was my, like what I proposed. I was like, I'll make peanut butter jelly sandwiches, hand them out downtown. And they were like, okay, yeah, that'll work. And I did it and stupidly approached the wrong person. And one thing led to another. I got slightly stabbed. And it
slightly stabbed.
Because it sounds
don't
so
you
worse.
Get stabbed, or you?
It sounds so worse than it was. It was. I mean, it was like, yes, it was like probably like a small like shank type thing, but I walked up to a group of guys and I'm like, have you heard the good news? And it's like, shut up. Like, and I don't know even what's going down with them. There could have been two people fighting. It could have been already escalating tension. And he gets in my face and I'm just, gee golly, mister. And like, he just quickly into my side. And it was enough to where like I need a butterfly stitch. That's why I say like it's not like a stab.
Yeah, right.
But it was enough that I was like freaked out. And I had this like knockdown, drag out fight with my idea of God that night. And then I woke up the next morning, she's like, I don't believe this. I no longer believe whatever this is. And that morning I had to do an interview with the Southern Baptist Convention for the scholarship for my following year. And being how I am, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the interview and tell them I'm not a Christian, but I'm so grateful. Thank you for the money you have given me. So I showed up and told them that, and they didn't really take it like I thought they would. They were just like, why are you here? Like, why did you come here? Are you messing with us? And I was like, no, I just want to say thank you, but like, I'm not a Christian anymore. I'm sorry. And they were just like, thanks, but no thanks, bye. We've invested X amount of money, so that's good to hear. Thanks,
yeah, right.
you know. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to be a tattooer. Like, that's what I want to do. And I started asking around, and I asked Chad Soner, and he was like, I asked him if he would apprentice me, and he said, no, you're too nice. Like, you don't need to get into tattooing. Like, you're way too nice for how tattooing can be. At the time, because I was, a little teenage brat, I was like in my head going like, he didn't know me, he can't tell me. But I get it now. Like, after I went through a lot of the stuff I went through, I was like, man, Chad was looking out for me. Like, that was really nice of him. He didn't have to do that. Like, he could have just said no.
Yeah.
He was incredibly kind. And it was something that stayed with me after going through all the garbage I did. And I was like, well, that's somebody looking out for people and for like tattooing too. You know what I mean? Like, to not, it's obvious his love for it, and he's phenomenal artist on all the chords. His paintings now, I don't know if you've seen his oil paintings.
I don't know.
Jesus.
I haven't seen anything recently, I don't think.
His oil paintings, it's insane.
Nice.
Like, incredible realism. And then, his tattoos across the board, amazing.
Nice.
They always have been. He's a savant. Like, that dude's, he was in hardcore bands. He was good at that. He was good at skateboarding. He's just super good.
Yeah, he's good at whatever he takes.
Yeah, he's just one of those. And then, so I was asking around, and then my friend Chuck, who, what was he been? He was in this band, Levy Park All-Stars, and he went on to tattoo Chuck Donahue. He went on to tattoo, I think, Justin Weatherholt's.
Oh, okay.
Maybe he was at Kings Ave or somewhere else. He has a studio now in North Carolina. He was super nice, and he was like, I'll take you around to every shop at the time he was in Tallahassee. He was like, every shop in Tallahassee, we'll find you an apprenticeship. And we didn't do it, but that encouragement made me go like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then I couldn't find one. So I ended up enrolling at UAB for fine arts, went to a hardcore festival, met a girl, decided I was gonna move to Mississippi to be with her, to Cleveland, Mississippi. Quit college already, moved to Cleveland, Mississippi, asked her to marry me, and then I got the phone call from Keely Idol, who had tattooed me before. Hey, he had just moved back from Ohio. He had been in Ohio actually with Bickney, the Rich.
Okay, yeah.
And that's how I ended up meeting him. And he was like, I'm back in town, and your old roommate, this tells you, this is so 2001 or 2, your old roommate told me that you were interested in apprenticeship. So he's leaving this as a voicemail on my phone in Mississippi to try to like figure out and coordinate phone calls. So like this was a like 6 phone call thing back and forth to get to this one point. And all that being said, I ended up getting an apprenticeship, and that was January 2003.
Okay.
We moved back from Mississippi, started apprenticing. And Justin Conzen owned the shop. It was Arrow Child. They were amazing and kind. And looking back on it, it took me years to understand how lucky I was. I think in the time you're a kid and you expect more, and then you don't understand when people are giving you everything they have.
I think also just getting caught up in the moment and actually working, just trying to become better.
Yeah.
You're not really thinking about how much you should be thankful.
Yes.
For what you're getting.
I mean, they gave
in the moment.
They gave everything. Like they literally gave me everything they had and could.
Yeah.
And I was, a workhorse. Like I was going to clean. I was going to do all that. And as I was doing apprentice tattoos, my apprentice tattoo started that February. I was then mailing them to magazines because I'm an idiot, and nobody could tell me no because like they didn't have experience with that, and so it was just something I just was like, okay, so I'm gonna get these developed, and then I'll look in the back of all the magazines at Joe Muggs' newsstand, write down all the addresses because I can't afford the magazines.
That's pretty funny, actually.
I mean, because at the time I was eating ramen and peanut butter. Like I had a job doing cold calls for a police. Like whatever it was, police group. It wasn't. It was a scam robocall group. I did that at night and then apprenticing during the day. They were really kind. They did not charge me for an apprenticeship. They could have, but they didn't. And so then I did that work. I got chicken pox from the owner of that job because I'd never apparently had chicken pox. Got them the same week I got married and the same week I turned 21.
Jesus.
It all hit at once, yeah. And at that point too, my apprentice tattoos were getting published in magazines. Again, nothing against quality because I love every tattoo I've done, but they were just publishing everything at that point. So,
well, I think like we talked about this earlier, like if you sent it into the magazines, it got published.
Oh yeah, like period.
You know what I mean? Because there was no real, nobody checked to see who the person was, how long he'd been tattooing.
Exactly.
They were just needing content.
It was not like it was to order supplies.
Yeah.
Like ordering supplies, you had to go through everything through the health department and like faxing over things to CAM or whatever. But then that all hit, and that was June. So yeah, June 17th is my birthday. That after all of that is when they were like, listen, I know it's a short time of your apprenticeship. It's been 6 months, but you need money, so like you can start tattooing. For money. So like it was short, but it was short because of their compassion.
Right.
So I started tattooing for money within 6 months on that apprenticeship.
So how long did you work out of that shop before you moved on?
I think altogether it was right at 2 years, right under 2 years. And they, I was hungry and I was trying to constantly learn, and I, made mistakes and I did things wrong here and there, of course, and like that, they were very kind in it, But I do think it created a bit of a wedge because we weren't communicating, and we weren't communicating great about things.
Right.
Then, Justin, a friend of his contacted him about seeing my pictures in magazines, and said, you should look out for him. A friend of his was a tattooer. You should look out for him. He's if he's already sending you magazines, who knows what he's going to do? Be careful. And then later, that friend contacted me, and that was Brandon Bond. And he asked me to come do a guest spot, and that was my first guest spot. I was lucky because Joshua Carlton was there, Zeke Owens was there. Those two experiences were worth how it was there. Joshua was who I wanted to connect with. I remember him just showing me compositions, and I think I was going to do a St. Francis of Assisi on a friend of mine, and so I had like a bust of a sculpt for like a half sleeve, and Joshua just kept on. And this is the days before computers, so we just had the reference. Joshua was like, nope, just do this and this.
Yeah, show certain sections and just like...
He was like, the head, hand, bird. Yeah. That's it. And even the bird, it's like the bird head. And that tattoo was the tattoo that got me like my first articles, got me like noticed. And it was because I was doing everything Joshua said. I was using like 29 mags and 45 mags. Tattooing 2 years, and I'm only using mags. And I'm doing these big painterly looking things, a lot of black and gray, a lot of color. but it was from him doing it that made such a difference.
So when you say Joshua, for everybody who
Joshua Carlton.
okay,
Yeah,
because that's the thing.
Yes,
because Josh Woods was there, and like
Josh Woods later. Yeah, I guess I never even.
that's why I want to clear it up because like, I want to make sure people understand.
Yeah, no, this is
who
Joshua
talking about.
Carlton.
So Joshua Carlton,
there.
when he came on the scene, was he? So my first introduction to that style of work, and from the same area, was St. Mark.
Yes, he was a good friend of his.
Yeah, St. Mark and the other cat who recently just passed away as well. They.
Oh wait, are you talking about Ryan?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got a painting by Ryan at my house.
So they
Ryan Hadley.
They all came out at the same time. He just passed away.
Yeah.
So they all came out kind of around the same time, and they were all pushing the same overall idea. Big mags, no outlining, like just these real kind of painterly things. And I remember being impressed, but I also was the asshole that was like, yeah.
I want to see it in 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that, I would hear the people saying that, and in my head, I was like, okay, how do you figure that out? You need black and you need lines. So then I started researching, and I didn't go to art school. I didn't take art classes ever. I was a theater major at Stanford, like theater major and religion major. So like I did costume design. Like I never had actual formal art training. So I was reading, and that's where I came upon like, the work of Caravaggio and like using chiaroscuro, darkest darks, lightest lights. Funny side note. So when Nick was still at Darkside.
Nick Baxter.
Yeah, Nick Baxter with you at Darkside. So I would sit on the internet at the shop looking at Darkside's website. So your work included, Nick's, Lou, Jacques, Eric Merrill. Like, look at this work and be like, this is amazing. How my brain worked from when I was like a kid booking bands and making zines, I was like, I'm going to tell them and I'm going to contact them and talk to them. So I emailed Nick and was like, I've got this theory on how to make it actually like painterly style work. And it's using chiaroscuro. So we have our darkest darks, lightest lights, and the lightest lights could be the skin tone, or you could be using lines as your darkest darks in order to have some hard edge to make it so it's going to age better. But it was just jibber jabber. And Nick's reply was so kind. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but it might work. So you should try it. And I want to hear about it. And like, that was my first interaction.
That was his PC version.
It was so nice of him.
Don't email me again.
Oh, later, I saw Hell City 2009. I had heard that Nick was like, just quiet and like, very subdued.
Yeah.
I knew he was going to be my friend. Like, I was just insistent. And so like going into the, like where the Thermofax was and everything, it was just him. I was like, this is my chance. And I was just like, Nick, my name's Sean. We're going to be friends. And like, he took to it and we became friends from like there on out. And we were like, we would have like picnics together during conventions. Like we'd have our vegan lunch picnic and talk about hardcore bands.
Oh,
like,
for fuck's sake.
Like he would get like, I was at that time, like I was like, if I'm going to do conventions, I'm going to hand out shit I believe. So like anarchism stuff. So books, pamphlets and all that. I just gave it away. And so Nick did the stuff from the same collective. So we would like give each other supplies and like, we just were of same mind, Yeah. And it was something I even knew young. I was like, I like him. And so in telling him, he didn't know at the time we were going to be friends. I even told him years later, it was like, I knew we were going to be friends. Like I always creepily knew. But yeah, I would see y'all's work and it made this big difference in my mind. But then I was like, but this is how my brain's thinking about it. And so Joshua was huge on that. But then I wanted to learn from people that were older too and like correct ways of quote unquote. So talking to Zeke, I was an idiot and I didn't know who Zeke was. I didn't know the history of Zeke.
But again, like with someone like Zeke, unless you're into that scene, like the only reason I knew about him is because of certain magazines and other individuals that I talked to that were older.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that were like, oh yeah, fucking, like the first time I met Zeke was with my friend Angelo Milos, who was at the time working down in Wilmington, and he took me out to a bunch of like the military shops to sell flash. Yeah. And Zeke was one of the people we walked up to, and we sat there and talked to him for like an hour and a half. Zeke. And he bought all my flash. It was great.
I mean, I loved talking to Zeke. Like I've always been the type that like I love information. I love stories. Yeah. So older people that want to tell them, I'm stoked. Yeah. So like when I came to do that guest spot, Zeke was the one that I was like, I want to be around him.
It blew my fucking mind that he was working in that shop. And I didn't say
I think-
anything to him. I didn't
Yeah.
say anything to him because I didn't feel it was my place. But at that point, I was just, I was getting to the point where I was just like, this guy is a fucking, like, meaning Brandon,
Yeah.
is a fucking nightmare.
Well, it's so for you. I mean, there's a whole different level of frustration because you know him.
Yeah.
The person he showed everybody is not the same person.
Yeah.
And that's typically what people do in order to control situations. You know, like they will manipulate those around and make it sound like I've got this. And I think at that point Zeke needed that.
Something like that.
He was at a point where like he'd been traveling around and he would always talk about, I just want land. I just want land. I just want land. Rural Georgia, I'll take that land. And I think he ended up there because he wanted land.
Right.
And then I think the idea he could make money via, that place is what kind of had him there.
Well, I think also at that time, like, Brandon had made such a name for himself in that shop because he did have a lot of really young, talented cats coming down the line, and he was smart in the way that he was able to manipulate magazines by getting all their work in it.
I mean, I think it was actually all manipulation because
of course.
the
His
people you're
whole
thinking
fucking-
of probably might not have been there at that point in time yet, because it was like a few really great people that were there, Ted Wallen, Pepto, Justin Jarrell, like really great people, not given the appropriate ability to do what they wanted to do and should have gotten the respect they deserved. And then Dave was there, Dave Tedder, another one, that they didn't get the ability to flourish. And so outside of Dave, the other three, they quit, they left, because they weren't given that. Right. And I think that with stuff like Zeke, I think it was, again, somebody being charismatic, saying the right thing. They need to be heard. So I don't even think it was the influence of the people as much as he just heard that and he was like, well, people know about the shop. And the only reason people knew about it is because of happenstance of timing. It's just like my career. My career is happenstance. I literally had a band that we had a MySpace account and I went, I'm going to do my tattoos on a MySpace account. And this is when you could have 3 photos. I literally searched MySpace for all the other tattooers and I think it was a dozen. And I added them and I had my 3 photos that I recycled and rotated. One of them was Hector Sedelia, which has been really cool to watch his career grow. But it was very small community. And that's where that first article came from.
Right.
And I think it was total happenstance, like one hit wonder type thing that just happens to line up. There's some tattooers that are really nice to me and hold me in this regard, like Timmy B, where they feel like I influenced them. And I view it as like, it's the equivalent of the punk rock band, your first favorite punk rock band, that it doesn't even matter the quality. You're just this is what got me into it.
This is what got you enamored by it.
And for me, I think I was happenstance, I got there. And so I think just, it wasn't like I got there on my strengths, because I did not. Like, I remember having multiple articles under my belt and still being like, how do I draw a rose? How do I draw fire? Like, it was so, I was so ignorant. And I didn't have that like foundation of like.
Well, I think when you get caught up in trying to create a style and just do the artwork that you know you want to create, that you're not really necessarily thinking this is going to look good in the magazine. You're just trying to put together content to get into the magazine.
Yeah, well, and even for me at the time, I just honestly I wanted to do what I saw Joshua doing, and I wanted to do what was viewed as neo-traditional, which now I see as like illustrative.
Yeah.
I wanted to do those things, which is why I'd also try to do like hand-drawn script, which going back to Zeke, that's where I got really lucky in that situation. So I'm totally ignorant and I'm doing this guest spot and I don't know anything and I have my portfolio and I would go to Zeke Owen, which is insane to think now. And I'm like, hey, will you look at my portfolio? I've been tattooing 2 years. They were like 4x6s in a crappy little thing, like horrible pictures. And he's going through it. And he's looking at it and he's just like, yep. It's like he's almost like, yep, they're tattoos. Mm-hmm. Like, but he's not ripping it apart. He's just like, yep. No, and he gives it back to me. I was like, so what'd you think? He's like, 2 years. Yeah, okay. I was like, okay, thanks. And then he knew I was about to get my portfolio reviewed by owner of the shop. And I go back to the portfolio review and he does it. And he, rips me a new one, says everything sucks. Unfortunately, not the most creative and like criticism.
Yeah, right.
You're not really going to say the what you need to do.
Yeah.
Not the most constructive criticism. That's what I was thinking. So just ripped me apart. And I was happy with that because like I need to be told something's not working. That way I can make it work. And so I went back to Zeke, and Zeke's like, so what'd he say? Like, really, like, this is going to be the thing. And I was like, he said I sucked. He said it was horrible. And Zeke's just like, face is just puzzled. And he's like, well, if you want to hear it, you suck. I could have told you that. Your tattoos suck. And your breath stinks, too. It smells like you've been eating garlic pizza all day. You need mouthwash in your station. And like, walked off. And I was just like, my head I actually had...
It's like one more shot for the day.
Oh, well, this is the sad part is I'm this nerd. I had a notebook that I wrote down everything everybody said. So I did write down mouthwash at station. Like that's what I took from it was like I wasn't insulted at all. It was like mouthwash at station. Zeke said that. And then Zeke came up to me later and was like, your hand-drawn lettering sucks. So let me teach you that. And I'm, yes, sir. Thank you. And like he sat down with me. Number 2 pencil that every time he'd sharpen all the way to make sure it's the sharpest tip and just quickly draw something out. And then he showed me pitches, he showed me lines and pitches and how to line everything up. Everything to where I had a diagram, I have a diagram that's all with Zeke.
And you said you kept it.
Oh yeah, I kept it. And then later when I was teaching people at the shops I was at, lettering, I made copies of that so that they had that and they could see how I learned it.
That's the best from back in the day because it was just one hand down photocopy to the next.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody had that grime lettering. Right. Like it was like everybody had this thing that they weren't supposed to have that was handed down. But yeah, I mean it made all the difference that he was willing to and wanted to. You know, like that shaped a lot to where I had that. I guess I was lucky because I was like, okay, older people in tattooing are awesome. Okay, I can learn from this and I can like try to grow from this. I didn't know who he was, but I did at that point. He had a crawling panther that he had done that day, I think, and I saw the stencil for a redone stencil, and I was like, I'm gonna take this just as a memory and keep that with me, and that's framed up in my studio.
Yeah, you were telling me earlier.
Because it was something I knew, like, I need something to mark this, you know. That notebook, too, I kept forever with all the notes. Later, a good friend of mine, Jason Reeder, I told him about it, and he started doing the same thing and then showed me his notebook. I was like, are you trying to make me cry? Like, stop. Because he was doing it when I was around him, and he's showing me the things I had said. And I was like, you're going to make me fucking cry. You got to stop. Like, no. I have to remember my kid said I can't cuss. So I have to make sure not to. But yeah, so then from there, I did 2 guest spots. That's when Albie started coming around.
Albie Rock, yeah.
Albie Rock started coming around, and I did get along, you know, with Albie. So that was something where I was like, oh, well, Joshua's gone. Joshua left. Albie came around. I was like, I like Albie. You know, he could be a little much, but I like his creativity. But I liked his creativity, and
he definitely had a lot of energy. He brought a lot to the table when it came to like inspiration and everything with him had to be taken with a grain of salt, though.
See, for me, what I connected with him on, he actually wasn't big around me. He was just genuine. Like I remember, like he was vegan. I think he's still vegan.
Yeah.
And I was vegan at the time, and I was talking about like, let's go to this restaurant in Atlanta. It's got a vegan meatloaf or something. And he's like, why would I eat that? And I was like, I guess it's good. He's like, if I want meatloaf, I'll eat meatloaf. I eat vegetables because I like vegetables. It's like, I'll eat the vegetable dishes because that's what I want to eat because that's what vegans eat. And like, for me, how my brain works, I was like, thanks. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'm not gonna eat that type of stuff anymore either. I'm just gonna try to eat vegetable dishes. Like, it just connected. Like, so where other people are like, he was a lot intense. For me, I'm like, maybe because of what I'm used to. It was just like, that was nice. He told me about vegetables. I'm not gonna do that. And his creativity, I liked it, you know. And like, there was some stuff I didn't get on board with, but like I did like the creativity. I think the stuff I didn't get on board with, I know he's changed and he's not that way anymore. But yeah, and then, so I did a couple guest spots, went to their parties or whatever, and then got a phone call out of nowhere late at the night. And it was like, do you want a job? What do you say? Do you want a job? It's going to change your life. Do you want your life changed?
See, that's the thing I think that Brandon had going for him. It was like this it was like the devil offering you a job, and you knew he was going to make good on it, you know, because you had no other reason unless you listen to the people before you and why they left.
Yes. Well, see, and that's the thing is the only person at that point who said anything to me was Justin's wife. And I regret the way I handled that because she was incredibly kind and she actually tried. And like, it was really nice of her. And it was something that I was like, I should have taken that into more consideration and thought from when it was said. But no, my brain was like, I need that. Yeah, I'm a sucker. Like he did use stuff I had told him. So Great Expectations as a kid was like my favorite book. Mm-hmm. I'm over emotional and ridiculous. So because of, do you know Great Expectations?
No, I don't actually.
So in it, it's this idea, it's saying out loud, it's the most white male garbage, but it's this idea of like you come from nothing and life has great expectations. You're gonna have this big life for you because somebody was looking out for you.
Right.
So the character as a child helps a prisoner get out of shackles that like had broken out of prison. And then later in life, he's got a mysterious benefactor who's helping him with his art and with all these things. And you learn later it's the prisoner who had been taking care of him since then.
Okay.
So some conversation that came up and Brandon referred to himself then as the prisoner. And in that of like wanting to take care. And it was the right thing where I was like, oh, somebody's looking out for me for once. Okay, well then, yeah, I need to do this. And he was like, you have to be here in, I think it was like 5 days. It was something it was way less than 2 weeks.
It's amazing that he could make demands like that and people kind of jumped.
I was 23.
Well, that's what I'm saying. A lot of the people that he was getting in there were
he
on the younger side
tried
as
to
well.
make those demands to other people.
It
They
didn't-
did not.
It did.
I mean,
okay.
one thing about Justin Weatherholtz, like he tried to make these demands.
Oh, I
and
remember
they
Justin
would just
coming
go
up and talking about the gun.
no,
And
yeah, and they turned around. I was young, I was impressionable, and it was like, okay, somebody's looking out for me. I need to do that. And then I thought naively, when I tell the shop, they'll be fine with it because they were friends, and they were not.
No.
Understandably, it was not. I did not handle that well, and it was a bad severing. And then later he would say, yeah, they hate you for what you did. Like he'd
So
say it a lot.
he's actually making you believe
I'm the bad guy.
that you're the bad guy and that, they
the
have
one.
every reason to dislike you for that.
Yes, he's like, I talked to him, I tried to tell him, but like, yeah, they hate you. Thankfully, years later, Keely got in touch with me and was amazing and was like, man, bridge underwater, we're good. We're no worries. Like we're friends, everything's great. And he was even like, I probably would have made the same choices. And through the years, he and I have always maintained contact, and he's an amazingly kind human being. Not everybody gets that opportunity, and he went out of his way to do that again for me. So I'll always say I'm lucky and fortunate with him. But yeah, so then I got there, and he had been at All or Nothing, and he had been screaming at the staff, me and Sean Herman are going to take over the world, so screw y'all. And I had at that point, I think maybe 2 articles. Yeah. And it's like, that's a great way to meet the new shop. So like, because at that point it was now a new crew that was Ted, Pet, Justin. And I came in and I mean, nobody would like me because like the boss just said that y'all suck and this is the guy that's good. And I wasn't. And like, I'm asking them, how do I draw this? How do I draw flames?
How did those guys take to that? I mean, take to you, I should say.
At first, understandable, like resistance.
Shape, yeah.
It wasn't long. They were incredibly kind.
Yeah.
Like they were all great people, then there was 2 apprentices, Coral and Allie, and they had just gotten in a car wreck that was pretty bad. Coral Pollock was in a wheelchair for 6 months, a year. It was a long time. So when I moved there, she moved in with me when I moved to Atlanta. So all that being said, I only had 5 days. So I actually had to find a place to live in Smyrna. And I was married at that point in time. And then move to Smyrna. And so there was a point in time where I'm just alone in this house in Smyrna working 12 to 16 hours a day at All or Nothing. And so obviously the marriage didn't go well. And it was, I was impulsive. We got married young. It ended up being that it wasn't working. And so the divorce went through, not a good divorce, not a good situation. happening while I'm doing all of these things.
Right.
And I get where she was coming from. She's an awesome human being who's done amazing things. So I get her anger. It makes sense. So, Coral moves in with me, and I'm living in a house alone and working 16-hour days and only just tattooing. And then eventually everybody quits, and it's me and Dave. And then it's like, okay, you have to do your custom tattoos, take pictures of the custom tattoos, and now do all the walk-ins that come in until however late. And like, you just got to keep going and
Just keep
going
doing it,
and
yeah.
keep going. And so Dave Smart was like, we need to hire people. And so Dave started looking around to hire people. Dave was the one who met Josh Wachowski, but Woods, which that whole story. So his name, Josh Wachowski?
Yeah, I knew that. I didn't remember, but now that you mentioned that, I do. Yeah.
So his forearm, Jimmy did a tattoo of Jimmy Litwalk did a tattoo of a cow on skis holding wood. So it's Woodkowski.
Oh, Jesus.
It was genius. I loved it. I loved that tattoo. But when Brandon, when he got hired, Brandon was like, that's too long a name. I don't like it.
So he changed it to Josh Woods.
Yeah, and so like that was, and it was unfortunate because then what's he do? His career is built on a name.
Yeah.
So there's nothing he could do. It was that type of decisions that were made that were executive decisions that he insisted was the betterment of the shop.
Right.
And so then, he hired out a new crew of people, and then it just became like you had to work, get your photos in magazines, go to conventions, you have to win all the trophies at the conventions, you have to do all the tattoos at the conventions, you have to constantly be online on Inks Nation, on whatever social media thing.
Yeah.
You have to get featured tattoo, which was like a competition when Ink Nation did it. It was just this constant churning and pushing.
Like he knew as long as you kept your face out in the fucking public eye, you were gonna make a name for yourself.
And that's what he was like pushing. Yeah. So like my first convention was that 2006, March 2006, and it was happenstance because he had convinced a young tattooer in California who was their first tattoo convention outside of California to have a booth with him, and that was Nico Hurtado. And then I don't remember why Brandon didn't want to go. I don't remember the situation, but he was like, "You're going instead." And I'm just like, "Okay, I'll go." And that's where I met Nico, and we split a booth. And that was another like game changer. I've never met somebody so hungry, and hungry in the way of like almost not like mad about it, but like he's tough. You know what I mean? And so like he would get like passionate about stuff. He talked about like, learning color mixtures by like wearing gloves and like mixing things by hand and seeing what happened and creating all these things. And he went out his way, like he gave me for the convention. I used some of his references that he personally picked out for stuff that like when people walked up, like we had huge long conversations all through the night that I had never thought about with tattooing. I had never talked about. Like it was a really good experience.
Well, I guess too, you guys were both coming up at the same time, and that's kind of when Nico was just starting to cut his teeth and making a name for himself.
It was, but he came out strong.
Oh, big time, yeah. I remember like he hit, it's back, back then it was a time where you could strike gold or strike oil by just getting a handful of photos in the magazine at the right time and getting them seen. And because that's kind of what happened with Brandon. It's what happened with me. I'm the one that told Brandon. I'm like, you want to you want to make a name for yourself. Send all those pictures in the magazines. Continue to send those pictures in the magazines. Tell everybody you're the best.
Yeah.
And people will believe it. And like I said, we were talking about before. I'm like, Brandon basically fucking took all that advice, hooked it on crack, and just fucking ran with it. And then started doing it with other people. And that shop became very popular in a very short period of time. But it was one of those situations where, because I knew the background guy, which was Brandon, to me, all you guys were damaged goods. Because it was just one of those things where it's like, it's a shame to have said that, but it was the truth.
So that was something I dealt with from everybody in that way, of being looked at that way. So that convention, even like Nico was kind of like, I don't really know what's going on there. That seems like a little much, but you're cool. Yeah. And like he and I got really like close, and like I think it was something like it was almost like summer camp of like it's our first time, and I got to see though what happened to him, and I did not want that. Like people coming up and looking at his portfolio, tattooers that we're like admiring, being like, I should break your hands, and like they think they're being nice, but some of them are pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
And then they started saying things really snide. And like, he was like, I remember going to the hotel and he was like, I'm just doing tattoos. Like, why are they doing this to me? If they like it, they can like it. Why is it now a target? And like, it really bothered him because he was just genuinely trying to create something and try to do something different, which he did. And I learned a lot from him from that. I also learned I don't want to experience that. I don't ever want to be viewed in that way. And then I do more conventions and people would say the same thing of like, oh, you're cool. I didn't expect that. I hate your boss. You know, like Big Gus and like Tony Olivas and like different people that I was very, Boog, like I was very grateful for their friendships. And
the fact that they weren't hating you because of association.
Yeah, and they were vocal about it. They were like, you know, you being there, I did not expect to like you, and I was not going into it liking you, but I do, you know, and that Tim Kern was another one that became a long-standing friendship that like thankfully they saw through it, and a lot of them were the ones that kind of talked to me through it because that was a really weird time. I mean, I was either doing conventions or working nonstop. Like I remember the first time I went to Little 5 Points in Atlanta.
Yeah,
it was like it was a vacation because I went to Little 5 for an afternoon. It was like, oh, I should be at work right now. This is weird. Like I was working that much, like every single day, nonstop. And it was a pressure cooker that just kept pushing and pushing and pushing to where it was also having to deal with somebody who was sick and getting sicker. You know, he was very, he made himself a face of as the owner and then just made it bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, I mean, like I said, you tell people and they fucking believe it, and there's no other way of doing that other than you gotta live that lifestyle. I think the thing with you made the comment earlier about wanting to make it clear to people that there's a lot of toxicity in the business. I think that back then it was legit. I mean, not to say that it's not legit now, but back then it was it was toxic. It was fucking straight up dangerous.
Well, it was dangerous, and it was also that's what tattooing was viewed as. So that is where you have the difference of people then accepted that. Yeah. Because it was viewed as that. It was supposed to be like you'd hear stories of, well, it used to be this bad, or this used to be this bad. So you would accept it. That was why I accepted it. I accepted things that happened to me because at least they weren't this. And even as they accelerated and they escalated and they got bigger and more, at least it wasn't that, you know? And then it became situations that were really intense and bad, and I could not deal with it. I remember I gave him what was supposed to be like my notice a year and a half before I left.
Really?
Yeah.
How long did you work there for?
I worked there for 2.5 years.
Those were pretty short runs for most people. Mm-hmm. I think Dave Tedder worked for him the longest.
He did, yeah. No, Dave did. And it was, so like that first year I was managing too. He had me manage the shop when I first got there, and that was just awful. And it was a different time. I'd have to deal with negotiations with the white pages and him. So you're trying to wrangle a pit bull that's arguing about nonsense to the white pages, which you say it out loud now and people, what's the white pages? You used to pay for people's phone numbers.
Oh God, yeah.
In a book, and then your ad, and then there's a reason why it was A1 tattooing because it's the first one that comes up, all or nothing because it's the first one that comes up. Yeah. And it was serious negotiations. It was stuff like that, just constantly growing, and it built this toxic pressure to where when he would do things, I would just jump through the hoop and be like, okay. He started filming for seminars and filming constantly, just constantly. So you just accepted you were being filmed. I've never watched any of them. I don't plan on watching any of them.
I never did either. I know a lot of people used to, try to make the comparison of yeah, man, I got yours, and I got Brandon's DVD. I'm like, dude, do me a favor, don't mention my name with his. I just don't want to hear it.
Well, and it's hard because, like I was saying earlier, now that I see outside of it, so in it, you're thinking okay, well, I'm believing this because this person's saying, and it's the abuse cycle. When you're in it and they're telling you, you just make me feel so intensely I believe in you, I care about you, love you, friendship, whatever it is, they accept these horrible traits of violence, of horrible, atrocious things and actions that can happen. Because in the end, you're going, well, they see me, they love me, and nobody else sees me or loves me, and this is okay because of that. And I think he manipulated that. I would say people manipulate that, and they continue to keep people stuck because they can't see out of it. So after years of realizing what I've been through, talking to clients when they're talking about abusive relationships, it changed my perspective to where I could be like, I get why you won't leave. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry that I get it, because I've been there, and it does feel like it's either you or them. There's no other way. Yeah. One of you are going to be ending it forever. There's no other way, because of that intensity of building the cycle. And I think that that's always going to build to a pressure point that cannot go any further. And I thought I reached that point at a year in, and I was just like, I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have to leave. And he was, fine with it. And he was just like, yeah, just whenever, we'll figure it out. Go San Diego, far away. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And that's when, at that point, Josh Woods had started working. And I was just like, we're going to travel. Let's just do that. Yeah. And he was in the same music I was into. He had been in hardcore bands. I think he was in a band, Dead to the World, I think is what it was called. We just got along. At first, we did not get along. Yeah. When I was his manager, God, that was a nightmare. Because he was the type that would come in late and you'd be like, dude, what? It's 12, you're supposed to be here at this time. He's like, so? And it just, nothing. And I hated being his
Which is surprising you would take a chance on fucking going on the road with him.
I liked him. We got along, I liked him. And honestly, I needed to be gone. Yeah. I could not be there. So that's why for that year and a half, it seemed like we were everywhere. And then we would purposely, we devised, we're like, okay, we'll take pictures together. We'll send our magazine stuff together. They were making videos of us tattooing. And we'd never seen that before. Right. And so we're like, well, we'll do collaborations. That'll be videos of us. Or it'll be us at conventions. And we just kind of were always together. I think we did 23 shows one year. It was nonstop. I remember we were in Phoenix and it was 100-something degrees, and then we were in Calgary the next week and it was 50, and you're just having to adjust. And that was a weird, surreal moment in Calgary, because then we were looking at flyers, and the flyers were Kat Von D, Dino Cook, Sean Herman on the flyer. And I was like, that's insane. And I think Canada's confused. I think they don't know who they're writing about. But I didn't get to even enjoy it, because it was just next thing. And you had to just constantly build this pressure cooker until I just couldn't do it anymore. Right. So I tried to not be around, and then I'd hear stories, and it kept getting worse. And I was like, I have to be gone.
So what was the final thing that made you just fuck off and bounce?
I got lucky, I guess. Craig Driscoll and he had been talking, and Craig said something about opening a private studio and then saying he wanted more people at it. Right. My best friend, who I talked about earlier, that took me to church, we were still close. He happened to live in San Diego. So Craig was in San Diego. So I was like, I could just live with Danny. It's an excuse to live with Danny. Sure, I'll do something with Craig. Yeah. But in my brain, my safety net was my best friend lives in San Diego, and I know I can be with him. So we're good. So I went out there, and it was a very I think I did a week at All or Nothing in 2008, maybe 2 weeks. And then by June I was gone. So I went to Sweden, actually worked at Heidi Hayes' studio.
I know the name.
She is amazing. That was another life changer. She kicked out, we'll just say, a very famous biker club from Gothenburg.
Oh, really?
She's amazing. Tough, strong woman, and stayed with her. And we were talking, she asked how I got into tattooing, and I told the Apollo story. And then it turns out Apollo was her partner at the time.
Oh, really?
And that was an entire fold of it, that then she's telling me this perspective about him and how she feels about he would think maybe about me or about the situation, about the spirit of tattooing. it was a beautiful moment that I'm incredibly grateful for. It was on a bus from Gothenburg to Stockholm. And at that point, like I was like, maybe I should quit tattooing because of what it had become. It was so bad in Georgia. And I was like, maybe I can't do
I
this.
think that, I think at that time, because I never looked at it as being bad back then. I think there were characters that were.
Well, it was bad to me because of the abuse.
Well, that's my point.
That's the only reason it was bad.
Yeah.
Is I was like, I think I might have to just quit tattooing.
Yeah.
And then I had that experience with Heidi, and I was like, I can never quit tattooing. Like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
But you just need a different perspective.
Yes, and she gave that, and I'm so grateful she did. And she was amazing to me in Gothenburg. And then we worked this little cruise thing that was that they had in Stockholm that they called tattoo boat. And so I was like, we're gonna work on a cruise. I'll book the 3 days. And now it's a 24-hour cruise that goes across the, I guess it's the Black Sea.
And
maybe.
you're just tattooing for the.
And it's a cruise on a boat that's not big. So you're just like tattooing like this.
Yeah,
like I was tattooing a neck and like just like rocking around. Like it was
Sounds like a fucking
crazy.
nightmare. It sounds sickening.
It was crazy. She was amazing though, and she was very formative and like changing my perspective to where when I came out of it, I was like, I will never quit, and I can't let this situation dictate who I am. It has to change. And you know, there were moments of physical abuse. There were moments of insanity that, you know, like I told you a few of the stories.
It blows my mind, the stories I've heard from people, and I can't believe that they either took it,
Yeah.
didn't call the cops, like any number of things.
I think with mine, because of them being, you know, like the blood story and like, you know, I won't get into that, but like stuff like that like, it's almost unbelievable.
Yeah,
you know?
it is.
Like,
no, it's straight up unbelievable.
It's one of those things where you can't believe that this is the situation that happened. I've had the conversation with other people that dealt with it, and you know, every time I started being like, well, I hope I had it the worst, so that nobody else had it worse. You know, and it's sad, but then it became where I accepted it, and I was like, okay, well, if I had it the worst, then that's worth it. If it wasn't so bad for somebody else. Yeah. But yeah, so then I was just like, you know, I'm gonna move. So I decided I was gonna move to San Diego, but first I went to Calgary. Well, actually, first I went to New York and I stayed with Justin Weatherholtz.
Right.
That was another. I was like at this formative time now of like I want to fall back in love with tattooing. I want to realize I know nothing because I'd only been tattooing all this chaos. I'd only been tattooing 3 years.
That's crazy.
And
considering all the shit you went through with that guy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I think with him, it's like dog years.
Oh, well, I mean,
You know what I mean?
and the amount with work too, like the magazines, I have a lot of them. I mean, I've got hundreds of magazines from that time that were like in the Netherlands and Germany. It's like Sean Herman, Future of Tattooing, Sean Herman, blah, blah, blah. It was everywhere because we were sending it everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was just this intense moment of time.
It's crazy because when you think about all the stuff that you accomplished, it was just done in a very simple manner. Like,
it's just sending it in.
Like
Yeah,
doing
no.
it nowadays, I don't think
It's not the same thing at all.
Now
Oh.
it's just as it's tough. It's talent and fucking luck. Where
Mine-
back then it was determination of just getting the word out there.
Mine was luck, and I'm a hard-headed workhorse. Yeah. So I was just like, I'll just send them pictures, and then I'll call them.
Yeah.
And I still find myself doing it to this day. Maybe it's like my male white privilege of me just being, I can just call them. Because like you sound like me, and you have a radio voice, and people very rarely are going to be mad. Yeah. Like they're usually like, okay, because that's the world we live in.
Yeah, I think that
it's not fair.
I
it's
think,
messed
yeah,
up.
but I think that's changed because I don't think it's like that anymore. Because I don't think people want to talk to anybody.
I don't know. I mean, if I have an issue, it's not great. But if I have an issue, I tend to be like, I'm going to call whatever it is. Yeah. And it's still, like, I think my privilege still gets me through a lot of situations. And it's realizing that. Where I used to be like, I'm good at talking, I'm cunning, I'm funny. I mean, it's like, no, I'm none of those things. I'm a white male that has a voice that is very masculine identifying. So because of that, people think that there's an authority, and then they're going to be like, oh, I guess I should listen to what he says. Which is what got me into so much bad situations.
Right.
And it was having to realize that. So even like staying with Justin and realizing I don't know anything. Like he's sitting here trying to draw a snake, and I don't get why it's taking him days. And I'm like, it's a tube. And it took like 10 years till I was like, oh, that's the most complex thing. And
it's not quite just a tube.
You know, well, and snakes revitalized my love for illustration. Like that's why I had a store, Serpents of Bienville. It was like the realization of like, oh my God, there's so much in just a snake to draw that it's everything. Like, be it like scales and understanding movement, understanding belly to scale pattern. Like, it was so much in just a line. So I was lucky for that. And he definitely was so encouraging and kind when he didn't have to be.
Right.
And then I was gonna be in Nashville because a good friend of mine from high school, Doy Gardner, we grew up together. He wanted to open a shop, and I said, no, I'm not the person to open a shop with. But my friend Josh Woods wants to leave Atlanta. You should open a shop with him. And so they did. They opened up Black 13.
Black 13, yeah.
And so I was going to work there. And then that got wind back to Atlanta. And I started getting phone calls nonstop. And I was not in a good place because I also, I'd moved back because my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'd moved back from San Diego and been like, okay, I'm going to be near her, try to figure it out, whatever. Got all the phone calls and finally was like, I can't do this. And so I'm not going to work Nashville, but I had a conversation with him, with Brandon, that was the last time I spoke to him. It ended with him saying, I'm going to get off the phone right now because I'm scared of you, of what you're saying. I'm not proud of it, and I was very graphic and angry. And so that was our last time we ever spoke.
Some people only understand one thing, so.
Yes, and with his, I finally lost it. Yeah. And again, I'm not proud of it. So that was the last time we ever spoke. And then I called my friend CW Nice, who had tattooed me forever ago. He had opened a shop in Mobile, Royal Street. And I was just like, hey, can I do a guest spot? And he was like, sure, come on. And I just moved down here from there. Like, it was supposed to be a guest spot that I never left, and got a place and kind of slowly became accustomed to like, okay, I'm just going to be here.
Right.
And that was 2008. And I've been here ever since.
Oh, wow. So now what made you go to a private studio versus working in...
So I was doing, we were doing Royal Street, and me, CW, Pony, and Peter Anderson. Then we also had AJ Ludlow was there, some, apprentices coming and going, tattooers coming and going, but they were all great people. Drew Collins, Paul Averett, Suzette Collins. Like there's so many people that were just kind. Right. And I was grateful for it. But it was difficult because then it spread into 2 shops, and then it kept growing and it kept growing. And then CW was like, I'm going to move to Hawaii. So shops, whoever wants to buy them, whatever it goes. He moved to Hawaii, and then we chose, Pete and Pony and I, to open a shop.
Okay.
So we opened Belrose in 2016. And I thought this was the first and only time I'll open a shop. And if I'm going to do it with anybody, I'll do it with them because I've known them so long and I've been through a lot with them. And then it wasn't working. It was hard. Yeah. I didn't get along with them and I get it. I'm hard to get along with sometimes. I'm different.
Well, I think that's the whole point of being an artist, and you got to find the right people, and it's got to all kind of gel together. Otherwise, you're just basically butting heads the whole time.
Well, and I'm intense, and keep in mind, so all that being said, I started drinking for the first time in 2008 when I left All or Nothing. I was straight edge and never did anything prior, and I'm an alcoholic. So that I learned it from that. Yeah, and right. I drank for 6 years straight. And so I drank through all of that and did crazy things at conventions and was like a psychopath in ways of just everything was like the adventure.
Yeah.
At one point, somebody was wanting to write a book about, I guess, me or whatever you want to say. It sounds weird to say that. And his thing to his editor to explain it was like, imagine being with the Dalai Lama and Charles Manson at the same time, and that is what these events are like. And I remember because one of them, a hurricane was hitting, and I told him, I was like, Austin, we're going down to the water and we're going to experience life. Now I know bipolar 2, this is a common thing. Comedian Chris Gethard has almost the exact same story that when I heard him tell it, I was like, okay, I guess I'm not crazy. It sounds like that's a chemical thing. But yeah, I made him get out on the pier in the middle of a hurricane. The water's hitting, and I was like, "This is living," screaming, like, and that was the kind of stuff like I did all the time. Was just 90 to nothing. Like, I've got to experience everything. So then we opened a shop, and I also had this ethos that was like, I don't need to make money. I'm going to give everything away. And I'd been doing that for a while.
Right.
And so we open a shop, and like, if you don't all agree on that, that's not necessarily a great ethos.
No, definitely not.
And so like, I had different ideas and stuff, and they wanted to create a sustaining business. I wanted to do something now, you know, and so it just wasn't working. Yeah. And thankfully, like, Pete was the one who was like, hey, it's either our friendship or this. Like, I'm not doing this. So either you take the shop or I take the shop, but this is not worth our friendship.
This dynamic no longer works.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And so then at that point, I had already opened the store that I had. So while we had Belrose, I started some projects with Jeff Ensminger.
Okay.
With his printing press.
Yeah, we were talking about this about him earlier. If anybody doesn't know, Jeff does some amazing...
Southern Cross Press.
Yeah.
All my prints, everything I've ever done was with Jeff.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine. He's an amazing human being. Him and his partner, like, they're just both the kindest people. You know, him and Alexa are just great. You know, and it's something that you don't come about often. So that's why I was like, I want to try to see what I can do to use this in a good way with this new shop to try to help the artists. Mm-hmm. So it was like, what can we do for the artists? If you bring us art, we'll front everything and then just take back from the money made. So you don't have to save up money and make prints. You don't have to do all these things.
Okay.
We'll front everything and we pay ourselves back through a amount of the profits.
Right, exactly.
That's if you sell prints.
Yeah.
So you know as well as I,
oh,
you don't sell prints.
Yeah.
So it just stuff like that. I kept trying and it wouldn't work. I'm not the greatest businessman. And one of the things I started to do was prints about local folklore and mythology.
Okay.
That was
I saw those upstairs. Yeah.
And then I included stories explaining it, but then also writing about the modern day sociological implications of the mythology. So like if it's, you know, tying to racist ideology, misogyny, like different things, and showing how like it's not just a story in history, but how it was a control mechanism used in history,
right.
And how mythology is many times accepted as truth and used to control different minority groups and different like populations. So because I had to overwrite it and politicize it or do whatever. So I did 5 of those, and that was supposed to be like the pack of it, and then I made a website for it. And then from making a website for it, it became opportunities from that. So my kid's mother, my wife at the time, mm-hmm. She is a writer, and so she started writing for the website and writing blogs and writing things for it that were like really good stuff about local mythology and folklore.
Right.
So the project just kept growing, and then somebody offered us a gallery space in Daphne. And the city council vouched for me, and they were really awesome. So we opened a small gallery store in Daphne. And then my friend Dwayne from high school, Dwayne Knight, had a space that he was looking at doing a studio in, a larger one. Him and my friend Chris Cumby, who I'd mm-hmm. also known since I was like 12.
Okay.
And they are both artists, and they were like, you know, you want to take a look and just see? And I was looking around, I was like, man, there'd be space, I could tattoo here. And they were like, yeah, that'd be great. And so we did renovations, and that's where I was having a private studio. We closed the Daphne store, and then I reopened in Mobile under my studio.
Okay.
So Serpents of Bienville was the downstairs part, and then upstairs was my tattoo studio. Separate businesses, separate everything.
Yeah.
And then we ended up doing more with like local art and like local makers, and still having some stuff tied to folklore, but like trying to support local.
Right.
And then started working with local coffee shops and like bringing local art to the coffee shops.
Right.
So I had a program where I would just change the gallery every month.
So that's cool. I mean, the idea is to try to create community.
Yes.
Within your area.
Well, because I always struggled with that. In tattooing, I never felt part of something.
Yeah.
You know, like you always see these people, and like you see these groups that are like, you know, when you're young, you're like, there's a cool kids group. There's these tattooers and this group of tattooers and these tattooers and this group of tattooers.
I
and
think
then you
that
hear of shops.
the
you
cliques
know.
have always existed. I mean,
Well, and even in shops, like for me, Dark Side was a mythology of everything after. So like that's where I found you guys, but then it was like the shop after that Nick went to with Lou, and then you opening Hope. I mean, my third machine was the Eric Merrill.
from the Pandora.
I still have it.
I think it was called the Pandora.
Pandora.
wasn't it?
I have it.
Pandora.
It's at my house. Like I still have it.
Yeah. It's not like they go bad.
I mean, yeah, it's still something I very much value. Like that, it was something that for me, I say mythology, but it was something that you felt like you could watch, and then you could watch these things grow and watch the people grow, and everybody had a place that they fit, and I just never felt like I fit, you know. And I know that as an adult now, I know nobody feels like they fit.
I think it takes a certain type of person to feel comfortable in every single environment.
Yes.
And not everybody is that person. I think that doing what we do definitely, you know, educates you on, you know, different places and how to react in those places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you still have to have a certain amount of chutzpah to be able to roll with the punches in every single situation.
Well, and in my brain too, it was like, oh, all these groups have friends that they're just like, this is where they fit. So like, you know, and again, it's just we categorize people. So me and Josh would talk about it, and you'd be like Gunnar, Joe, and like that group, and Tony and Jimmy. They're the cool kids doing like this type of thing.
Yeah, but even in those groups, you have outliers, and you have people you don't necessarily get along with, or you only get along with so much. There's envy, there's jealousy, there's all kinds of shit.
And it's also outside in.
Yeah.
So I thought that forever, and then I started making friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And then I was like gravitating towards people and being friends with them, and the work's nothing. Similar, like Tim Kern, like he ended up becoming a real close friend.
Yeah.
He's a huge influence on me, but I don't know if looking at our work you would see that. And then like
I think that's one of the better. I think that's coming up and having your own thing for so long that you're not. It's not a matter of you're not looking for inspiration or influence as a copying tool. You're looking at it more from the perspective of what you're going to do, and then just keep that influence, that inspiration in the background, and not use it as.
I mean, I suck at copying.
No,
like to
that's
be
a good
perfectly
thing,
honest,
then
like
that's a
I'm
good thing.
horrible at it.
Then that's a good thing.
Horrible at it. Like earlier in my career, if I coulda, I woulda. Unfortunately, I couldn't. You know, and that it was funny because you probably don't remember this, but you and Joshua both said the same thing. Joshua Carlton did in his very nice way of like, you have a style, it's very obvious, you can see it. You were like, I always can tell a Sean Herman tattoo. And you just left it at that hanging. And I remember being like, okay, I hope that's good. And I had other experiences. Like I did a guest spot at Paul Booth's shop.
Yeah.
And Paul did not like my tattoos. They were solid, so he was fine with it being there. But like you could tell he was really kind, and he pulled me into his like room studio spot and talked to me like for 4 or 5 hours. But you could tell at the beginning he was digging, like, what do I say? What do I say? I hate this guy's tattoos. What do I say? And then like eventually we were able to get into conversation.
You just have to, I think, you know, especially if you invite them in your home.
Yeah.
Then you have a responsibility to either be honest, you know what I mean, or do something that will benefit you as the guest.
Yeah.
And his shop, as you know, as you working there. I mean, he doesn't want anything leaving his shop that he's not going to want to see, and he wants his clients to come back, whether it be for you or himself or for somebody else in that shop.
Yeah, and you know that experience was a formative experience. You know, like I went into it being like, okay, I'm going to guest spot here. I'm staying at the apartment here. I'm set. And then I got there, and it's like, you're not staying here. Carrie King's staying at the apartment. Here's Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Nice to meet you.
Oh, there are worse people to lose a bed to.
It was, but also, like, I'm a little guy, and I was like, this is the first time I feel like I'm big. This is crazy.
Nice.
He was very nice, and I get it. And so then I was like, okay, I guess I have to stay at the New Yorker. And, like, that's where I stayed. And so I spent all the money I made because I was staying at the New Yorker for a week.
New York, yeah.
But then Paul did give some good advice where he was like, I see your name on a lot of magazine covers. Don't for 1 second think they're doing you a favor, because they're not. they're putting it on the cover because it sells the magazine, because that's what they have to do. They have to sell the magazine.
Yeah.
It made a lot of sense, and it changed my approach to a lot of things.
Well, I mean, it's all window dressing to a degree. I mean, I mean, the magazines, utilizing tattooers for the magazines to help promote magazines, it just made sense. For me, it was a one hand washes the other kind of scenario, you know what I mean? Now you have that with supplies, where you have suppliers pushing names for pigments, for machines, for whatever, and I don't think anybody's getting their just desserts when it comes to what they deserve to receive from these suppliers and stuff like that. You're doing more for them than they're doing for you.
It's funny you say that too, because it's another one with you. So I guest spotted with you. We started hanging out around each other, and I just got along really well. To where there was a point where it's like, do I want to move to Connecticut? Because like this would be awesome all the time. And you were really kind on one of the guest spots, and you were like, if you ever want a place, I'm always here. And it was a serious like, I think I might want to move to Connecticut because I really get along with him. Because you challenged me on all this stuff. So going back to the sponsorship, I was one of the first people I knew that were presented with sponsorships. Like I was presented with them in like 2007, 8. And at that time, I'm just like, I don't got money, so great, I'll take them all so that I don't have to pay for any supplies. And then you and I were talking, and you're like, do you use said pigment because it's the best thing for your clients and what they deserve, or do you use it because it's free? And like that messed me up, but like, in a really good way, because you were right. And I was just sitting there like, I should get the best for them.
It's one of those things. It's you put your money where your mouth is. I mean, like I've often said, if there was something, like I'm not sponsored by anybody. Now, having said that, I mean, I get all my gear from Electric Ink in Brazil. Yeah. I'm good friends with Paulo, and he's like, as long as you like my stuff, you can have it. And I don't promote him. Yeah. And every now and again, I feel bad, and I'll make a post or hashtag something or whatever. But it's not a sponsorship. I mean, Eric Merrill introduced me to the guys from Pulse back in late 90s. 99, I believe it was, and 98, 99, and I started using their gear. Yeah. And at that time, Brett was just like, oh yeah, just take the machine, don't worry about it. And, Eric started it. Eric was probably one of the first people I know that was technically sponsored but not sponsored, because it wasn't a matter of sponsorship. It was a matter of, this is a Connecticut company. I know these guys. I grew up with these guys, and I want to see them succeed. Yeah. So Eric would go out there and bring the machines, and he'd put them on the table. And if people asked about them, he'd tell them about them, and they'd sell them. It wasn't a matter of sponsorship. It was a matter of, I use these every fucking day, and I do great tattoos with them.
I bought Pulse machines. I bought the Solution, the liner, and then I bought Eric's machines.
Yeah,
so
it made
sense.
And like I said, recently, breaking out, coils again and working with them. The majority of coils I'm using now are the old Pulse machines. Yeah. I had to change all the rubber O-rings on them and stuff just because of the dry rot, because they've been sitting for so long. But I mean, those machines are still some of my favorite machines. Yeah. And there's a handful of other ones that I use as well. But I think that's testament to the company and what they built. You know what I mean? But again, it wasn't because we were getting free stuff. We just wanted to see our friends succeed. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think that's, again, the genuine and caring. And I think for me, that was the challenge I needed of like, what am I genuinely doing with supplies? What am I doing with this? And that's, for me, I went to Old Gold and started buying from Phil. Yeah, from Phil. And then like, it changed on everything, like to where every supply company, everything I bought, like I wanted to know the person who made the machine, who made this or that. The amount of things I feel like I learned late for how my career went, that was one of those. That's like, that should be on the front end of like support tattooers. And not in a way of like, it's cool. It's like support tattooers because that's what we are and that's what we have. Yeah. And we support as a community.
I think that's kind of more difficult now because so many suppliers, while they may have started out as tattooers, they're not fucking tattooers anymore. And they don't have any of our best interests in mind. They just want to sell their gear. Yeah. So I think you have to be that much more cautious of the support aspect of that statement, because you could be supporting what you think is a tattooer and they've become nothing but a supplier.
No, I've run into that. And then the same, there's some that boggle my mind. Carson Hill with Numa.
Yeah.
So I'd messaged him and been like, yeah, eventually I want to get one of your new machines because I keep hearing so many things. And he was just like, here's my number, call me. And I was just like, okay. And we talked and like talked about the machine. And I was like, okay, I'm going to save up and I can afford the machine.
Yeah.
And like got the money, sent him the money, got the machine. And then he was like, call me. I want to talk to you about it. He walked me through everything about this machine, ins and outs, his love for it, why it does what it does, and like this excitement and like glee that I haven't seen since like machine builders I would talk to. Like he was so excited. And the other side was like, who am I? You want me to, like, you're having like grime, like really blow you up. You're having all these people blow you up. And then I'm in Mobile, Alabama, and you're like, give me a call and here's some of my time. So like, I think there's still people in it that are making for tattooers that are still giving that. It's just harder to find it. You know what I mean?
Like I said,
but it's there.
I
It's
think
just
like anything about the business that I dislike, there's still always going to be the aspect of the business that's from the old world that's never going away.
Yeah, and well, and I think that's where like when I started trying to create community here, it was trying to get away from all of that too with tattooing. So like when we opened the store and tried to do stuff here, I got really like gung ho on like, this will only support local, this will all go to the artists, this is not about making money. And it never did. Like that store for 7 years that I had it was always in the red. It never made any money. The second year we had it going, December 24th, a car, so December 24th, 2018, 2017, a car drove through the front of it. It was crazy. We had a desk, this big, awesome desk that was from Dr. Music that Wade had. So for me, it had this real personal tie of like, this is where I found punk rock, this is where I found my life, I've got this desk. And I was sitting at it waiting for the guy who worked there to show up. And my client show up too, and she shows up. I put my computer down on the desk, and Dwayne and Elizabeth, who you met, they own this building. They happened to be coming around, and Doy was there from Black 13.
Okay.
Because he's good friends with Dwayne. He comes around, my client comes in, and we all hear what sounds to be like a freight train, like hitting. And I grab my client and throw her behind me to this open room area as all of the books and shelves come at us like a tidal wave. That it just didn't make sense. Like everything we had in this store just all of a sudden coming at us. And then you see a car hitting, and she hits the desk that I'd been sitting at.
Jesus.
And then she tries to leave, and she like goes into reverse and hits the oil pan on the window that she had broken through, and then goes forward. So now oil is going everywhere and gas is going everywhere through the store. And so at that point too, we had been selling maybe like 10 different artists' original work. And like that was like a huge part of everything we did. And it's just, I'm watching it get destroyed.
That sucks.
As this lady like won't get out of her car. And it turns out she was an elderly woman that wasn't supposed to drive. And she ended up veering off the road, overcompensated, and hit going like 35 miles an hour.
That sucks.
And they said that she was probably going like 55, and it was 35 when she hit, because she hit a Mercedes, the median, the sidewalk, and then drove through our storefront. It was insane.
So that ended the storefront.
So actually it didn't. That's the crazy part. Kind of, but didn't. We never got the same business. Before that, it was like getting business and picking up. But at the same time, once we kind of came to our senses and realized what had happened, I went to the desk and I look, and literally if the desk was this desk and it was here, it was against the wall like this, and my computer was wrapped around it, and the stool I was sitting on was destroyed.
Oh my God.
Because this was a big desk. I would have been dead.
Yeah.
Literally like a minute, 30 seconds difference. I would have for sure bisected, been dead.
That sucks.
And it was a realization like, I could have died. This is insane. And I think adrenaline, everything hit. And I was just like, okay, well, we got to get going and figure it out. And everybody started working. The other guys who had the building, Chris Cumby had a studio that was behind where the store was.
Yeah.
And Dwayne Knight, they just started working. We started cleaning. Next thing I know, like homeless people are helping us out. They're picking stuff up and moving it. And like people that we'd seen, because like where we were, there was a shelter that would do Wednesday stuff.
Right.
And so like it was like unhoused people coming back and forth that we'd always see. And they're just like, well, we're going to help. And like, we just want to help you out. Like, I don't need nothing. And then people started stopping in traffic and like parking their car and just like helping and just picking things up, moving things.
Nice community.
It was insane. Like, I didn't know even what to think about it.
Yeah.
Like, and within, that was at like, I guess noon, because when my client got there. By 9 o'clock, they'd put up the plywood and like everything was in Tupperware, gone back.
Yeah.
And like some of his clients, a client of mine, Samantha Daniels, that's now a tattooer. Like, I've watched her go from a college kid to now a tattooer. She like got all these Tupperwares and started like single-handedly picking up glass, like doing all this stuff. Like, everybody just came out of the woodwork.
Everything to help out.
Helped, and it was amazing. But yeah, we could never recover. Like, so it was $40,000 in damage. I ate it and paid it, and I made sure every artist got as if the piece sold,
Right.
Because that wasn't their fault. So it was like, okay, it's like your piece sold, so here you go, you got that. So like from there, then the pandemic hits, and like we could never keep momentum.
Stay on top of it.
And I was like trying to do stuff with the tourism board. I was trying to do like mural projects with the city. Like, I mean, I tried everything. I was working with coffee shops, like changing out art, like doing whatever I could to try to keep it running. And then it was just like, this isn't gonna work. Yeah. And when the pandemic hit and we were trying to do like single person coming through, it just didn't. And then we switched to internet, and like it just never.
Yeah, that's tough.
It could never come back, you know.
Especially art. Art needs to be seen in person.
And it was stuff that just hit. And I think so for me, it became increased isolation. To where it's like, I don't even know what to do. Okay, well, I'm just gonna go back to work and just focus on working. And then they were like, well, the owner of the building's selling the building. So she's like, okay. And that's when Dwayne and Elizabeth bought this building.
And you moved.
And I moved here, and that was a couple years ago. Nice. And so I was fortunate. So after the wreck, we had one person still able to work because I couldn't really pay barely anybody anymore. Right. Heather Ryan, and she was just gung-ho and working and willing to help. And then when the pandemic hit, she continued to help. And then she decided, like, I want to start painting more, because she painted when she was younger. And then she taught herself how to paint and is killing it. So like, there's still, out of all of that, like, good things coming through and happening, you know, through that entire experience, you know. And then, like, you know, I was able to see my kids get influenced by all of the stuff that we had done. And I guess that should be included in that whole story, if I had kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have kids.
No, with the woman who I did Serpents with, she was writing for the website and did a lot of work with the stores. We ended up having 2 kids. So that's why I was like, I'm not traveling anymore. Yeah. You know, 2012 was the end of like really traveling. 2013, I did Hell City. Yeah. And like for my mental health and for everything, it's like, I can't do this.
This I mean, that's understandable. I think you know, I mean, sometimes you do things just because you need to take care of your own, you know, mental health, your own sanity, you know what I mean? I think that's why I travel. I enjoy that part of it. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's good to see people. I think I isolated too much. Yeah. You know, my kids are amazing, and I wouldn't change anything. They are the most sweet, kind, amazing people, and I love to see who they're growing into and who they are. So like, I don't want to miss a moment. I couldn't do anything without that. And there, you know, I got sober so I wouldn't forget that. Like, when I realized I was having problems, like I couldn't remember things. I was like, I couldn't stop drinking. I was like, this isn't gonna work. Yeah. Like, and you know, it was a bummer because like I had a best friend who I had tattooed at All or Nothing, Jason Reeder, and then he started apprenticing, and all of a sudden he's like coming up. And I don't know if you ever got to see any of his work.
I don't think I did, to be honest. Yeah.
So my brain is now farting. He worked. He ended up in Maryland. You would know better with the shop, Eric. Oh my goodness. Seth had been part of it for a while.
Oh, is that the one that it wasn't the museum down there, was it?
No, it's Vinny's.
Oh, Vinny Myers?
Vinny's, yeah.
Well, there's Vinny Myers' shop, and then there was
not Vinny Myers. Vinny's, he does a nipple tattoo.
Oh, well, that's Vinny Myers.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. He ended up there. Jason's like whole life, he would just tell me stories of everybody he met and ended up hanging out with and becoming friends with.
Right.
And he's like, he treated me like I was like his big brother. And so he'd call me like, yeah, I'm good. Like, me and Seth are doing this thing. And Seth's a fairy. And I was like, I can't imagine. That's crazy. Good for you. And then like he was working in Oregon and then came out there and works at Lil Vinny's. And then his wife Tosh started piercing at Lil Vinny's. And he was amazing. And he was getting big. And he had such a love for tattooing.
So what happened to him?
He took his own life.
Oh, boy.
That would be 2016.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, 2016. And so that was like huge changer for me, where I had just gotten sober and I was like, oh my God, we were that was our like connection. That was our thing. And like we would call each other and talk for 4 or 5 hours drinking. And so he was, in Maryland, or at times like Pennsylvania and different places, and I was in Mobile, and we would just drink and talk over the phone for hours, but we were living in the same cancerous brain that was not healthy. And we would say the same things that were not healthy. And then I got sober and he felt alone and he was like, well, who do I have now? And I'm not saying that's why anything happened.
Right, no.
But it was only a month later that it happened. And it was, for me, the thing that was like, this is it. For my kids, for my life, I will never drink again. I can't, and I know that now. And I'm gonna take things seriously. Start going to therapy. Got diagnosed with bipolar 2 and like with different things like related to sleep disorders, and getting medicated and taking it seriously.
Right.
And that's when I started to realize like how bad things were in Atlanta. And how bad things were in these other places.
Right.
And you have the realization of like, that's abuse. Like, and nobody should go through that. Yeah. And it changed my tattooing. It changed everything. So like,
well, yeah, having a fresh perspective on life and how you live it is, I would imagine, is like it's definitely like healthy, and it's a good way to fucking kind of maybe pick a different course.
Well, it's where I went private studio, and then tattooing completely changed for me. And tattooing was about
tattooing's changed for everybody.
It did. Well, and so that's the funny part too. It's that. So I became incredibly isolated, by choice and life and circumstances. My phone in a drunken swimming thing in 2012 got kaput, and I lost everybody's phone number. And then when I got a new phone, nobody's phone number magically transferred. So all of a sudden I couldn't call you. I couldn't call anybody. Yeah. I didn't have any contact with people. And then I got in my head. And then I was like, well, I don't want to message them on some social media thing. Then I'm that guy. And then I'm weird. And it took some years to where like a tattooer that I tattooed, Jesse Huggins, watched this guy grow into a phenomenal tattooer. Like it hungry and kind as the days long. Like he's amazing. Going from like doing kind of like new school stuff to like Japanese bodysuits.
Right.
And he's killing it. He started getting tattooed by Jeff, and like, but I've tattooed Jesse a long time, and I did a lot of work on him, a lot of cover-up work. And he's the type that wants to support tattooing. So he started buying paintings and commissioning paintings of his daughter from people he looked up to. So one was Gunnar, one was Nick. And he and I would talk, and he knew how I felt, where I was like, I think I was friends with these guys, but like I haven't talked to them, and like it's been a decade, and now I'm sober, and I don't know if I am. And so he gave them all my number. And so then people started calling me.
They started reaching out to you, yeah.
And it was like, oh wait, I am friends with these people. Like Gunnar reached out, and Nick reached out, and then Jeff Gogwe reached out.
Again, that's the nice thing about like being in a community and knowing people from a certain day and age, where it tends to be more real in certain instances than it does with other people. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think it's friendship. It's not what we think of as tattooing, where we're like, I kind of know this person. Yeah. It's actually like you spend time and you develop friendships that you would be friends outside of it. Yeah. Like Timmy B is another one where he like went out of his way. I know you did the podcast with him, and he said incredibly nice things. He said one thing I didn't quite understand about white. You guys were talking about traditional art, and he said something about Sean Herman white in it. And I was like, does that mean I use too much white? And then I sat there thinking like, are they trying to tell me I use too much white? Are they talking about my art? Is my art too much white? It's just one of my own spinny brain things.
I don't recall what we said, to be honest with you.
I think he was talking about making traditional art with markers. And then he said, that's when I come in there and do like the the Sean Herman white.
Oh, dropping weight and stuff?
I think it was.
Like
And
maybe
in my
outlines and
brain, because
stuff?
I don't talk to anybody and nobody talks to me about my work, I was like, is this his way of telling me I use too much white? Is this that old thing of like, you use too much white and you need to not use white and you need to use skin tone? Totally got in my head about it.
Nice.
But he's another one that is so fucking kind, and he always reaches out, and like he got other people to like reach out to me. So like I have seen now there is a community in tattooing. I guess I lost it for a second in that. You know?
And it's easy to do that especially when you get, like you said, you get in your own head. You go through COVID. You fucking and you're just looking to try to make a living. You know, you just sometimes it takes you to reach out to one or two people, like you said, and hopefully it all falls into place and everybody reconnects.
Well, and tattooing changed, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, tattooing is not what it was when we were like, doing guest spots and doing stuff. Like, it's a different animal now, and it's kind of scary. It's weird. I know a lot of tattooers not doing that.
I just wonder where it's going to go in the next 5 years. You know.
So it's hard in those cycles, because remember when I was coming up, they would say that what we were doing was bad and wrong.
Yeah.
They weren't totally wrong. We should have been using lines in black, but you learn and you grow and you change. But I feel like every generation has that of like this fear. And like in my personal perspective, I feel like now, like, yes, there's a lot of people getting machines from all these different places. But there were so many people making tape recorder machines. There were so many people getting machines like from catalogs they weren't supposed to be able to, teaching themselves. It's not like that's a new thing.
No,
it
definitely
just
not.
Looks bigger because there's so much more.
Because it is bigger, because it's that much easier. Before you had to work a little bit to have the end to pick this stuff up.
Right.
Now you just pick up your fucking phone and it's on here.
No, yeah, and it's a terrifying thing, but in the same, it's like I was saying, joking around about the old man comments earlier of like saying like things are different now. I do think things are different with that, but also in the same, I think new people are getting tattooed from communities that wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Like from marginalized communities, and like you have more people now too giving credit to people who've been around forever.
Yeah.
That deserved credit that wasn't getting it. Like we were talking about Pat Fish before, or like Miss Jackie in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people, and like Cliff Raven now, there's a whole like kind of revitalization of like what he did
and who he was at the time and what he brought to the table.
Yeah, so I do think that a lot of people have this fear of like, what is tattooing going to become, because it looks so foreign and different to us, and in the end tattooing's going to be here no matter what.
Oh no, it's most certainly, I don't think it's going anywhere. I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, people are always going to want to get tattooed, whether they be younger or older. It's always going to be there. It's going to be just how business is going to be performed, and whether or not people continue to follow the same traits of going to the same artist over and over and over again, or they just do the one and done through different artists.
So I mean, what's your complaint then about where things are going? What's your complaint then on
just
where
the
things
growth
are going?
and how fast it's happening, and just the fact that people seem to forget where everybody came from. You know what I mean? And then you have the individuals that just don't really give a shit where it came from. Yeah. And all they're concentrating on is where they are right then and there, and where it's going to go. Yeah,
I think I get bothered when I see the videos that are like tattooers that obviously don't care about anything but the social media video aspect of it. And it's sad. I don't know if it's tattooing, to be honest. Like the ones that are talking about like not having any tattoos and getting to tattoo celebrities.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I've talked about that with certain people where it's like, can you trust a tattooer who's no tattoos? Like, do they even know what they're doing to people? Yeah. It's, that's a big deal. I mean,
well, it's also the passion for it. Like we were saying before and talking when we were eating, like I got most of my tattoos when I was 19. Yeah. By the time I was 19, because I love tattooing. Yeah. And so if somebody's not tattooed, you wonder, do they love tattooing? Yeah. It's just.
But I think you also have this now artist mindset where it's not just about, like, I think some people get into it because of the lifestyle. Yeah. You know what I mean? And what it makes them look like and makes them feel like. But then you have the other ones that are they just want to be artists, and this is the medium in which they work.
And I don't know how long that can last.
Well, that's the problem, is the fact that there's a reason why they're called tattoos. I've heard people say that, name something that lasts more than 10 years. Well, a fucking tattoo does. Yeah. Whether or not it looks good or bad in 10 years is entirely up to the artist and what they choose to do. If you want to create, hyper realistic art that's not going to hold up more than 5-10 years, that's great, but your client should be made aware of that.
Well, and also in the same too, I've had this conversation with you before too. If you're going to tattoo for a long period of time, you have to start to realize the amount of like what it takes from you.
Yeah.
So the people that are just dabbling into it for the beginning, I don't know how that's going to work, because tattooing is, if you truly care about it, it's draining.
Yeah.
It's taxing. I mean, like we hurt people while they're moving, and we're trying to put something on them that is an imperfect representation of something that they want.
Yeah.
And then we hope they like it.
Well, and that's the thing. I think from the standpoint of like creating art and being aware of how it's going to age and everything else like that, that's you know, that's where I think you have to find, like, there's a reason why I don't necessarily, that I've never, you know, tattooed the way I draw or paint, because that's made for paper, this is made for skin, you know, stuff like that, you know.
Well, I mean, I think there's that, but I think if you don't care, like, so.
I don't think it's bad of people not caring. I think that they care more for the finished product in the moment than they do about the person having to live with it for the next 50 years.
Okay, and I think that's not said enough.
Yeah.
I think that it's not said enough and spoken up aloud enough for the client of like, what is it that, how does that affect somebody?
But I think, well, here's the thing, I don't think they realize how it affects them for another 15 years until they have to grow old with that tattoo.
Well, and I think,
then it becomes an issue of, wow, this really doesn't look good in 10 years.
and I think that's where conversations with older tattooers can help. Like,
yeah, but the problem being is a lot of younger tattooers don't really give a shit what older tattooers have to say, because they're living in they're living in their moment. They don't look at the fact that we had our moment back in the day as well.
Well, because we did, and like, you know, I remember being in it, and it's fast, and then you're like, oh, now nobody knows who I am, and it doesn't matter. But it's in the same. I do think there's an opportunity. Like, I tattoo a lot of younger tattooers, and in tattooing them, trying to like explain the importance of how we talk to our clientele.
Yeah.
How do we like present to them? Like I was saying before, like I never say no. I always say, this is what I can do. And like trying to cater it, and again, it's draining and difficult, but I think now we're at a time where a lot of tattooers are quitting. And a lot of people, there's not a lot of work going around. And then it becomes like, well, what do we do? And what we do is a lot of times now the harder work becomes the conversation.
Yeah.
And the conversations we're not having, and the stuff people aren't talking about. And then you have the people that are suffering through it, tattooers or clients or whoever, you know. Like we both said that we've known a lot of tattooers that unfortunately took their own lives because of how difficult it can be. And I don't think that's talked about seriously enough.
Well, again, I don't think that it's the tattooing aspect, obviously. I think it's just a lifestyle. You know what I mean? It is one of those things where you get caught up in the emotions of other people around you. And then, I mean, there's drugs, there's alcohol, there's, you know, just the stress of having to make rent or whatever. I mean, there's a lot, and I think we see a lot more of that than anything else. But I think it's also this fucking Peter Pan attitude of fucking living as a tattooer and being able to get away with bloody fucking murder.
Yeah.
You know, we said all this stuff about Brandon, you know. He spent his entire fucking career being a douche and not giving a fuck about anybody but himself, whether it be because he's high, drunk, whatever. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, he just lived his fucking life without any care in the fucking world. And look how long it took to catch up to him. And we're still not 100% sure fucking caught up.
Sure. Well, and then the worst part of it, though, is that he is just the symptom of the larger problem of, like, this happens more than just him.
Most certainly.
This has happened for just generations.
Most certainly, exactly.
You know?
I mean, it's just the way it is. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. I think certain people bring something to the table that they're going to be known for you know, for long after they're gone. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you have the Sailor Jerry's. You know, we deal with like Lyle Tuttle. You know, the Moskowitz brothers. You know, and Philadelphia Eddie. I mean, these guys were a bit of a horror show, but the fact of the matter is, they were great stories, you know what I mean? And then you have the individuals like, you know, Philip, who haven't passed yet, obviously. But you have Philip Blue, you have fucking, you know, Ed Hardy, you know, we just lost Jack Rudy, we just lost Shotzi Groman, you know? These are individuals who are going to be remembered not only because they're great characters, but also because of the what they left in this industry for us, you know what I mean? And that's it. They were innovators and they were pioneers, and that's never going to be forgotten.
Well, and I think, again, going back to what I was saying about clients, like my advice best advice I ever got for how I feel about clients is from Philadelphia Eddie, where I ended up in an elevator with him once, and he's just talking away. And he was just going on about how showing up at a shop, and he was like looking around, and everybody was like stressed out about not being able to get to certain clients, like walk-ins.
Yeah.
And this lady was mad, and she was like yelling at everybody, and Eddie walks in and just starts talking to her. And it's just like, a beautiful lady getting a beautiful tattoo. This is a great day. This is and just gave her the time and made her feel like it wasn't a tattoo shop where when somebody walks in, everybody looks. Yeah. And it's just like, well, why are you in here? You know. Like,
well, again, that's part of. I think that's where, the current times find us, because you have individuals that if they don't have an appointment, why are they there?
Yeah.
If they haven't been vetted, why are they here? You know what I mean? If I don't like them and they don't listen to the same music as I do, why are they here?
See, I guess I just never. Maybe it's because I have my world. I never experienced because I've been private studio.
Well, the thing is,
like,
whenever I go to a different city, if I go to a different country. Not that I make a habit of going to tattoo shops all the fucking time.
Yeah.
But every now and again, if I see a tattoo shop, I'm going to pop my head in just to see what kind of shop. Because I dig going to shops, and I love seeing what people do to their shops.
If you ever want to see them, there's about 20 going down to Gulf Shores from here now. It's insane.
Exactly. It's everywhere now.
Yeah.
But along with how different shops are, the attitudes of... And that's not to say that back in the day, you didn't have the same thing. You walk into a shop and you get stared at and fucking, mugged at, but the fact of the matter is it just seems weirder now,
I just realized I don't think I've walked into a tattoo shop in like a decade.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
so,
any tattoo
again,
shop.
seeing
God.
That's what I'm saying. You have a different perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because you
I
have a
didn't even think
perspective
about
from 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, you're right. I didn't even think about that because anything I see is from the tattooers I tattoo.
Yeah.
And so I don't have.
Yeah, but
that
see,
same...
if they're coming to find you, then they're going to be a particular type of tattooer.
No, and you're right. I mean, it's like I was saying earlier when you were asking how it is down here with stuff, politics or whatever. I'm known for being away.
Yeah.
Like I'm the one that they would be like, oh, if you like that rainbow stuff, then like he's the one I guess you got to go to. Like, right. I'm great, very happy. Label me liberal, progressive, whatever you want. Yeah. I'm super happy about that. But because of that, like I don't have to ever experience a lot outside of that. So I'm probably in a bubble with tattooing, but it is something that like, I'll say, I don't know, I've heard a few older tattooers talk about the goods of it, of like, there are new people that are like trying and there is something there, it's just getting through it.
Yeah.
I mean, the same way it was for us, and hopefully there's no more, this misogyny, Andrew Tate type tattooers.
Oh, that's never going away.
That's
never going away. That's human. That's human. That's not even a matter of a tattoo. That's human nature.
I mean, like I literally think I have like a anger effect if I see a pit bull like with a tattoo thing. If I see Rob Zombie, if there's just certain things that it's just hard to not get judgy and mad.
Well, again, I get that, but by the same token, I also look at it from the perspective of it's a great big world and you're just one person in it. No,
I mean, you're right. You're right. It's probably me also doing my white male individualism of my world and my things that bother me.
Well, again, then don't ever leave it.
Yeah.
But for me personally,
no, you're right.
I like being out in it,
I mean, so do you feel like there is any chance, or does it feel like?
Of course. Like I said, I think there's always going to be, I'm not saying it's turning for the worst. I mean, there's always going to be people toe the line. There's always going to be people that keep things, in a direction that I want to be in.
Yeah.
And there's going to be other people that go off the other way,
So if you're going to all these shops, are there tattooers you see, like, is there any tattooers, individuals that you see that you like that?
Oh, there's tons. There's absolutely tons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like, for the most part, I think I personally know better people than I know lesser people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The people that I don't gel with, I have nothing to do with. You know what I mean? And I'm surrounded by otherwise very talented, very cool people that I have no problems being around. And that's the thing. That's why I am still continuing to go out, because that is out there. I mean, this is still the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, I get people give me shit because I come off as being super down on the business. And they're not entirely wrong, but I've not lost faith in it whatsoever.
You've been tattooing now 32
years,
And then just decided you want to continue to have a new job.
Well, it's not about it. I don't look at this as a job. Like I said, this was more for me to glean inspiration and knowledge and something
Yeah.
from other people. And that's, I mean, for me, I love talking. You know what I mean? Like when we first got here, we spent what, 2 hours, an hour and a half talking.
Yeah.
You know, when I went to Craig Foster's place a few days ago, I got there at like, I mean, shit, we talked for like 4.5 hours before we sat down and started filming.
How long did the film go?
Another 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
So it's like, but that's the thing. That's what I enjoy conversation. I enjoy being with my friends, and this is how I do it. I'm not skydiving. I'm not fucking skateboarding. I enjoy conversation. You know?
Well, and I think that's tattooing though too. Like the talking is such a huge element.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I think that's why I have clientele.
Yeah, because you sit there and you talk all the time. I mean,
yeah.
I don't wear headphones. Music is on in the background, but I don't put in movies. I don't have a TV in my room because to me, that's not what it's about. It's about the connection you make with people. Granted, that's not with everyone because fact of the matter is there's lots of different types of people in this world and it's hard to connect with all of them. So some people I connect with a lot, and some people I connect with very little. But the fact of the matter is the end of it is they get a really nice tattoo.
Well, I mean, that's what tattooing I think is. It's what we have from that connection. It's the actual tangible thing that we have from a connection. Because I mean, it's a very vulnerable moment of, I'm going to hurt you, and I know what I'm doing, but there's a good chance I'm not going to know what's going to happen. That I'm going to have to be flying off the cuff, and then we're going to talk about it. And I'm also having to think about 45 things at once. Like my kid, my oldest was like, I mean, how hard is it to tattoo, really? I was like,
acting like it's not a big deal.
Oh, because I don't stress or talk about stuff with work. They never really experience much with it because I try to be like focused on them. I was like, well, let me tell you my 1 minute of what I'm thinking about in a tattoo, and then you can tell me what you feel like if that's difficult. And we were driving, and we passed this like mile marker that showed that it had been a very long time of me explaining it. And I was, saying basically like, I've got to stretch the skin. I have to make sure it's taut. I have to make sure and pay attention to how their skin's reacting as I'm going to be using the needle and knowing how far the needle's going into the skin. I have to be knowing how I'm moving my hand gesture, my hand movement, paying attention to make sure it's doing what I want it to do, but also make sure if it's chewing up the skin. If it is chewing up the skin, I have to know how to back off. I have to then be aware, is that affecting the pigment in the blend? And then I need to actually pay attention to watering down the pigment as I'm going. As I'm trying to hold conversation, as I'm trying to be uplifting and tell them like good things or fun things or be at a good point or tell a good entertaining story and keep up with the story while I'm doing all this other stuff by the seat of my pants. And then hoping in the end that they're going to look at it and be like, that's what I was hoping for. And not look at it and be like, I was hoping it might be a little bit brighter or more. And I said all of it to her and she was like, that's a lot. Why do you do this again? I was like, because I have to. Like that's what I'm built to do, like, is tattooing. Like, I knew it from a young age, and I've been lucky to have it be brought back to me. Like, I'm built to tattoo. There's nothing else that I would ever really want to do. I like writing. I wrote for Skin Deep for 4 years, and that was fun. But, like, tattooing, and I like making art. I like making physical art, painting, sculpting, but nothing's like tattooing.
I agree.
Like, it's not art. It's something more that's so old and so ancient and it's been done forever. And like we get to take part in something with somebody every day. Like that still boggles my mind.
It's legit.
Like it's insane to me that like literally every day somebody comes in and they're like, I want you to mark me forever with this thing. And they could be at the worst point of their life. And then you get this opportunity to sit with them and talk and try to bring something good about it that then they'll look at for the rest of their life and be like, oh yeah, he said this thing about me when we did this tattoo. And the tattoo's cool. I mean, it's kind of fading and this, but the thing he said was really nice. And like, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it leaves a mark and it leaves an impression on people that they're hopefully never forget.
I mean, that's the goal, but that's also like what we've been doing, like going back to the Apollo stuff and going back to stuff from like forever ago. Like that's what tattooing is. And if it's somebody doing it by hand poking it in an apartment, but they're making a connection, it's hard for me to not see it as that.
Right.
Especially when it's like then somebody doing it just to get something that's not who they are, what they love. It might look beautiful, but it's not them.
Right.
Like which one is truly tattooing, And I think in the long term, that connection is what defines it. Like it's not necessarily the art, it's not necessarily the imagery, it's not all of these things. I think it's that vital human connection
Right.
that we have. And that's why my clients, I'm sure, come to me. Like, the tattoos are solid and they look great, but I think it's the connection is why some of them have been getting tattooed by me for 20 years. Because, like, I want to hear them. And rarely in life do we feel like somebody wants to hear us. And then if you mark that on them, they can look at it and be like, okay, somebody wants to hear me. Somebody wants to listen, and this is where I said this thing, and this is where this thing was this thing. And I think that's what's missing right now is the recognition of that. So, like, a lot of the tattooers I know that were like, everything was focused on magazines, on being bigger, on being more. That was what was missing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, I think I get sad when I still see that, and I'm like, but what about that conversation? You know, like, what about that person that's now making a choice to stay alive because they look at it and they're like, well, somebody was thinking about me and that was funny, or like they made that same joke about the same feeling I had, so I'm not alone. I think that's in the end much bigger of what tattooing is, more than like pigment or appropriate skin stretches. Or
no, I agree. I think every artist has got their own fucking take on it. Some of it's that, some of it's the connection and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, because I get the technical is important, but if you don't have the connection, like, I don't know, what is it? And maybe that's just me over emotional, ridiculous.
I think it's just different strokes, man.
Yeah, I probably overthink it, but it is just sometimes I get sad. Yeah. You know, like, that's just me, but it is like tattooing to me can be magical because it's something that we've done since the dawn of humanity. Yeah. And we just decided to be like, I need to mark myself. And then outside of marking myself, I need somebody else to mark me. Yeah. And then you become the bestower of the mark to the other people. I mean, I don't know, it's an honor that it's mind-boggling that people waste it and that people use it to abuse people or to do horrific things. Like, I'll never understand it. And it makes me so bummed, you know, like, because we're so lucky to get to be here. Like, every day I tattoo. I can't believe it. Yeah. I'm shocked. I'm still just like, somebody wants me to tattoo them. Oh my God, I'm so lucky.
I think anybody in the business right now is incredibly lucky. So like I said, I'm truly happy with what I get to do. So
yeah, well, and it's a weird time. Yeah. A lot of people I know are quitting.
I agree. Yeah, like I said, it's definitely a matter of being forced out sometimes. And yeah, we'll have to see where it all ends.
Well, and I think it's a lot of people that came up in my generation that were like, thrust the way I was thrust, because I'm not the only person. I'm not, again, I'm not anybody special. Because if you do the amount of numbers, it's like hundreds of people would have their names on the covers of magazines, thousands of people. Yeah. Like, you're nobody. And so none of it matters ever. And unfortunately, we put our weight into that, and that we think that is our value. Is that like, oh, I have to be relevant.
Well, I mean, again, it's made worse by the fact that that's how people are nowadays with social media. Like, they see other people living their lives through social media, being bullshit influencers or just fucking making TikToks or whatever, and they feel that they should be able to live that kind of lifestyle. It's like, it's a false sense of reality. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's been shoved down everybody's throat that they now believe that, well, if I'm not living that lifestyle, then do I even exist?
Well,
am I happy? You know.
Well, that's with people, and the thing about with tattooers, my career began on social media. Yeah. My whole career only began because of social media. So, like, MySpace is the reason why I have a career. Yeah. So I've watched it in this ebb and flow, and it's like watching the monster, like a leviathan, destroy itself. Yeah. Because then it becomes this idea of like, how many likes do you get? Like, very good tattooers that are awesome people, I've had them say to me, I have 17,000 followers. I posted a picture, I got 100 likes. That means 16,900 people told me to just screw off and that they hate my tattoo.
Yeah, but that's putting entirely too much thought into bullshit.
We know that.
Yeah, I get it.
100%, but that's why I say, like, the danger of the mental health of what I think that monster of social media, of the churning that happened at All or Nothing, of this whole new world that got created, I think it's also created a sickness in a lot of tattooers.
Oh, most certainly. I agree with that.
Tattooers that now believe their value is in how many likes.
Yeah, and how many hearts they get.
Yeah. Well, and outside of that, it's a tattooer like myself who's been tattooing 20-something years. So if you came up in it, now it's gone. What's your value? You know, like that's the thing that I'm more scared about for tattooing.
Yeah.
Is how many tattooers are going to make those decisions that we know people have done, taking their life, or just not taking care of their mental health.
Yeah.
Like,
well, again, that's a big deal. I think that's just artists in general. Like, and you know, I think being tattooers, we probably deal with that less than, you know, regular artists, like regular, you know, fine artists or whatever. I mean, because they don't have the be able to bounce ideas and have springboard off of your clients and stuff like that, which is a big deal, because it's those clients coming in that may talk you down because they had a good time in your chair that day.
Which is good, but then also in the same, you can have a string of clients that can be taking out their pain on you. Yeah. And then that can just wear with you as a
I think that
too.
as a tattooer, you have to be made of stronger stuff. And that's all it comes down to.
It's just that tattooers need to be tougher.
Exactly. Honestly, yeah.
But do you think some of them use that? How many do we know that? How many tattoo shops have you gone into where it's a bunch of dudes that are all complaining about somebody and acting like somebody's success is angering them and that they think they're so good now?
Oh, that's everywhere. I do it.
But it's that same, because I think a lot of it is because of how fragile the egos are in tattooing. Because it is, again, a job where you hurt, like realistically, we hurt somebody, and then we're going to go off of their time looking in the mirror after we hurt them for 6 hours to be like, is it good? Like, where with a painting or with anything like that, you have this like thing. They're going to walk out, and they may never come back. I don't know about you, but my brain is a weird lock to where I'll remember people, and then if they come up on my social media and I tattooed them 10 years ago and I never saw them again, I will be like looking at their tattoos I did and be like, still good? Do they hate it? Do they hate it? Is that why I never saw them again? Is it me? Did I do it? Is it me? And it might be because of how I came up. That like, it was so ingrained. But like, we do have this fear, I think, of not being enough and being
I think we all have that, but the fact of the matter is when it comes right down to it, you have to find that within yourself that you know who you are, you know what your value is. Yeah. You know what your worth is, and that's all that fucking matters.
So you're teaching classes on that?
God, I'm not teaching that. That's something you have to learn on your own. Yeah. Because I mean, not we live in a fucking world that everything comes down to the fact that you have to be told how to think. You have to be told that that this is what you're capable of doing. I mean, there are people out there that's like, no, you're worth it. Yeah. Dude, if you don't believe it, somebody telling you who's taking money from you to tell you that. Yeah. That's not the person you should be.
So you're not going to be starting a motivational speaking
not even a little
thing with
I
seminars.
am not the right, because what did I say to you? I was fucking yelling at you, telling you that your shit's floating in the air and it shouldn't be fucking.
And it was so good.
Yeah, exactly.
And give context on that. One of the guest spots that I have with you, after drinking and hanging out and loosening up a lot, because I do think you're incredibly nice and watch sometimes how you phrase things. I knew you had issue with stuff in my work and I could not figure it out for the life of me. And then finally, when you loosened up, you gave the best advice I needed, which is you said that your tattoos are good. They just look like a thing and it's just floating in a thing, like in air or just there, but it's just a thing that's there. It doesn't live. It doesn't have a story. It doesn't have an environment. It doesn't have a background in a world that it lives within. Like that was one of those, like, it's a lot bigger than like, okay, I need to add like a mountain range. Like it was more so me looking at an appendage differently to where I'm like, okay, sometimes it's appropriate for it to be a thing that fills and that's where it's living. Yeah. But then other times it's living within the scene, in the scene. And then it makes me want to add other scenes and have like stories that are told through it. So it was advice that was, we joke about it, but like huge advice. I mean, that was one of those things that you need to hear. So I do think we need that.
Oh, I agree.
We need that, like somebody just saying like, hey, look at your work, it's great, but you need this in it, or this would be defining in it. And I do think that's something missing a lot right now within tattooing, is people talking like that. Like I see a lot of seminars and it's a lot of teaching how I do something, but what if the people teaching you how to do something could also change their doing something? If that makes sense. Like,
well, I think that comes from like talking to lots of different people and picking their brains, and I don't think paying for a fucking seminar is necessarily the right way to go about it.
So I've never actually seen a seminar.
I've been to several. So
yeah. I mean, I've never seen. I feel like a horrible person. It's kind of like the TV stuff. I'd only seen very few episodes.
You're not
of television
missing anything.
Stuff.
You're not missing anything.
In fact, I felt real bad because London mentioned once that he had talked about me on that show that you guys were on, and I had never seen it. And I did a piece on him for Skin Deep. So I was like, I'm gonna have to like find this video and rewatch it so that I can be like, yes, thanks so much. That was so nice of you. And like rewatching, I was like, I am an ass. Like there's so many friends that have like been on TV or done these bigger things that I just didn't even see. Or
Yeah,
pay
but that, I
attention
don't think that you should have to justify your friendship to them because you went out of your way to see something you didn't want to watch.
Yeah, but in the same, it's like somebody says something nice about you.
This isn't your kid's talent show. This is, you know.
But it's still somebody says something nice about you. It's good to hear.
Oh,
you
no,
know?
I get that. But there's a reason why he said something nice about you, and it didn't involve you having to watch a TV show that he was on.
Yeah, I never did. That's the sad part.
So there you go.
And that was another one where Frenchie messaged me about, because she was like, did you see we got you on TV? And it was because the magazine cover they were using with y'all on it for The Win was a month that I was in it.
Oh, that's cool.
The article they showed was mine.
Oh, that's cool.
And she was like, I got you on TV finally. I was like, oh my God, you're so nice to me. Jesus.
Nice.
Well, because I got a lot of, I'd get messages from producers and stuff, and I was just like, I'm not the type. And
it takes a certain type of person.
Well, and then like I later became friends with Aaron Sanchez. He's so nice. Have you ever met Aaron?
No.
He does stuff with Daredevil up there. Like
okay.
he's a chef that he's got I think now 2 restaurants in New Orleans, and then he's on MasterChef. Him and Gordon Ramsay do all that. He loves tattooing. He's a phenomenal human being, super supportive and like amazing. So then like befriending him, I was like, you're on TV like all the time? How does this work? And then all of a sudden I would start to get production emails like from producers that were like, this new cooking show needs contestants. I'm like, I bet you he was like, this guy's nice.
Yeah, cool.
Here's a number, and every time I'm just like, nope, I'll never be good at making you money.
Nice.
You don't want me on your show. It would be awful, like awful. I'm not entertaining. I'm not dramatic. It would not be fun.
Nice.
It would just be me being like, is everyone okay? Does anybody need anything? Can I help you? Like, are you? You could win. I could lose. It's fine. Like, I would just be awful, especially like Ink Master or something. That'd be awful.
All right. Well, on that note, being awful, I think we're.
That's how you want to end it, because it's being awful?
Being awful.
That's amazing. That's an amazing way to end it.
I was going to say, because I think with the amount of conversation we've had, we've gone up and down, up and down, up and down. I think being awful...
Is that a good way to end it?
And not being seriously awful.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
As I say, like, I'm not dramatic. And then it's...
Well, exactly. You are dramatic.
Yeah, it's good enough.
So I think we should let the audience
drama
decide
end it.
Exactly whether or not you're awful.
There's like, how bad is Pee Wee Herman's nephew? Really? How dramatic is he? And then there'll be like the one guy from 2006 that's like, I really liked his tattoos when he did scary girl faces.
It's like, whatever happened to him?
Oh, I got that once. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Oh my God, I got tagged in a post. And it was a tattooer. He's good. I hate to say I forget his name. He was good. And he was like, it was a picture, I think, of an article of mine that was old. And he was like, very nice. He was like, a long time ago in the sea of tattoos, there was the whale of Sean Herman. And you see him in magazines and everything. Like, he was everywhere. It's like, you know, whatever happened to him? And then I looked, and he's still tattooing. And that was it. And I'm just like... And then a woman replies under, it's like, I used to have such a crush on him. I'm so embarrassed. And I'm just sitting there reading these things like, do they know I'm going to read it? And then I'm just going to be like, I'm young. I did not die. I can read this, and it sounds like you don't like what I do, and I have disappointed you, and I'm sorry. I don't tattoo girl faces anymore. I'm very sorry. Like, it was so, that's really the main things I'll get tagged in once in a while.
Well, because I think that's where you made your mark, and nobody, they don't do the due diligence to look into it beyond that.
Yeah, well, and it made a mark. It's just funny to think that it made a mark in zombie faces. Zombie Burt Reynolds or zombie Brad Pitt. It would have been nice if it was like using line work and creating a new Art Nouveau based style or something respectful.
It all depends on when you came into it.
Yeah, great. So I came into it at the zombie Magnum PI.
The zombie apocalypse time.
Oh, it was awful. It was so awful. Like, and I thought I'd never seen it done before, and I thought it was a good idea. And it's
So there you
like,
go. It's something you're trying to bring to the table.
Yeah, and now, no, that's what you're known for. It would be like, I don't, just trying to think of something, maybe Salvador Dali being known for being on game shows. Like, it's the most ridiculous thing of like, you try to have a career of all these things, and then the thing you're known for is like, remember when you did a zombie Brad Pitt? When you'd been tattooing 2 years? That was cool. And you're just like, I've had clients be like, that one time you did this, like, yep.
Yeah, but it was popular.
That was,
popular then.
I mean, I guess. I was in a weird shell of a world. I guess it was popular. I don't know. You know, it was the people I tattooed that wanted that. And well, yeah, I remember giving Billy Tolier? I always say names wrong.
I think it's Tolier, yeah.
Yeah, I always say every name wrong. I probably said everybody's name I've tried to be nice about wrong. He came up to me at a convention a long time ago. Said something about tattooing some reference face. And I was just like, here, you tattoo this, what was it? It was the Corys from License to Drive. I had this like, reference and stencil. They're like, well, here, you do this on somebody then. And that was like what I passed down. That's the worst. I have all these stories about like Zeke Owen and lettering, and it's like what I passed down to a tattooer. Here's the Corys and License to Drive.
You do that.
You're welcome. And like, that should not be what you're known for at all.
Well, then you should have thought about that back then.
I know. I really should have thought about that before tattooing a zombie Magna PI on Matt. He was the apprentice at All or Nothing. And that was the first one that probably led down that horrible road.
And that's all it takes. It only takes one to get published.
Yeah, or have a video made, or then everybody else wants that, and yeah. Yeah, well, I love that walk down that road. On that lovely note of now every comment will be like, oh, I remember him.
Exactly.
He was really good. What happened?
Well, now they know that you're in Alabama.
Yep, that's all they'll know from it.
Exactly.
Oh, he went to Alabama.
Yeah.
No comments about his tattoos now. No comments about the work that he's been doing now. It's like, that's good. He's in Alabama. Maybe I'll get a zombie portrait of my wife. You that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm gonna have all of your information in the description.
I appreciate it.
On the thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate this.
That was really good catching up.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
thanks for listening to my over-dramatic up and down.
You're up.
I really, in my brain, thought
over-dramatic.
that I was monotone for a long time. And then I saw the news broadcast from the car crash, and I was like, what kind of drugs is he on? Like, is that how I always sound? Like, asking people that saw, I was like, am I that up and down and sound like a joke cartoon radio? They're like, yeah, you do. Like, it's and somebody else was like, it's entertaining at least.
And that's all that matters.
Like, I hope so.
That's all that matters.
So hopefully it was entertaining.
Definitely.
For your, as my kids say, your emo dad audience.
Oh, Jesus.
That's what my youngest said it was going to be. Only emo dads will be watching you, so good luck.
Well, we'll see. I don't know how many emo dads tune in.
That's not on you as much as me.
Nice.
That's her ripping on me.
Nice.
So.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe. See you when I see you.
That was fun. Hopefully it was enough for you. Part of me was like,
enough.
I got to watch it.